Let's go and move with life. Let it go. Something new tonight. Let's go and move with life. Let it go. Something new tonight.
G'day guys, welcome to the Unofficial Scorecard Podcast, a podcast where we talk all things boxing and occasionally the wider world of combat sports. This is episode 70, and once again, back to back, we are joined by the Aussie boxing scribe himself, Anthony Cox. Guys, there was heaps to get to. Not only the action from the last month since we recorded the last episode of the podcast, there's also a lot of news notes that popped up, especially all about Australian boxing, which, you know, we love talking about more than anything. So we got to all that. And then surprisingly, the run to New Year's Eve, beginning on November 30, is absolutely packed. So there were heaps of fights to talk about, guys. It was an absolute ton of fun talking to Anthony, as it always is. If you guys have listened before, no doubt you would have heard him on the pod. He's been on many, many times and most likely will continue to be in the future if he will give me his time, which I definitely plan on asking him for. But yeah, guys, the reason I went back to back with Anthony was because not only I just love talking to him and picking his brain about our favourite sport, but last time when we did the pod, obviously we were coming off that pretty big break, 3 to 4 months, and when I went back into the program that I used to record, I must have somehow, I don't know, all these pop-ups popped up and I was like, yeah, whatever, I don't know what all this is. Click, yes, okay, get out of here. I'm trying to do the thing that I normally do, and I just went ahead and recorded, and then it actually uploaded the video portion to YouTube, which I didn't even know about, and neither did Anthony. So I accidentally kind of hijacked him. Normally we don't record the video, and it ended up going on YouTube, so I apologized to him. So I thought, look, how about now we know it's going to go up on YouTube, I can't hijack you. We'll have another crack at this. So yeah, we got Anthony back on it, and it was an absolute ton of fun, and as always, a great learning experience talking Aussie boxing and boxing globally with the Aussie boxing scribe himself. So with no further ado, guys, let's jump to that now. All right, well, here we are back again just before the December schedule was about to kick off, and we're doing it once again with the Aussie boxing scribe, the all-time TUSCpod clubhouse leader appearances-wise, Anthony Cox. Tony Cuppers, you're back, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure to be here as always, Zach.
Now, mate, I was just saying to you before we started recording, I had no idea how loaded the schedule up until New Year's Eve is until literally yesterday when I started making the list, and we could be here a while, but that's either a good thing for some people or maybe that's a bad thing for some people. But either way, we're going to be breaking it all down. So I can't wait to get into it, mate. But as always, before we go forward, we have to go back. And I really want to start with the massive opportunity that was presented to Australia's Dana Coolwell. We're both massive fans. I'm sure everyone listening is a massive fan of Dana. It didn't go his way. It was a bloody tough night at the office in a 8 round points loss to Bruce Carrington over on the YouTube undercard of an event that shall not be named. But before we get into all that weirdness, Coxie, what'd you make of Dana's performance and the fight itself?
Look, I think we all saw that pretty early on he was in over his head a bit. In saying that, he still performed admirably in a losing effort. I thought he would have won over a lot of fans with his fighting style. And he did have pockets of success in there, not enough to bank rounds, but he showed that he's not a million miles away from the top dogs in the division. He obviously needs a little bit more incremental development to continue improving, but I thought he acquitted himself quite well in what was a comfortable decision loss, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, mate. I didn't think he was disgraced at all. But unfortunately, just going to that matchup, which I didn't anticipate, but I think Carrington was a level above in every category. You know, he hit a bit harder. He's a little bit faster. His eye was quicker. He had a bit better IQ. His foot positioning was on point. Just every category. And that shouldn't come as a massive shock. I was sort of basing my estimations on how Dana would go more off Carrington's last performance, which was a little ho-hum. Now, at the time, I didn't know whether that was sort of a one-off. Is Shushu a bit overrated? All these thoughts were kind of going through my head. We know Dana performs in the ring every time. He's never really had an off night. I think he should be undefeated. I thought he won those 2 fights against the Argentinian and Jake Wiley as well. But it was pretty clear to see that. Well, I don't know if that's the best version of Bruce Carrington, because the bloke certainly got world-class talent, but it was definitely a much improved one on his last performance, which didn't necessarily shock me, but I was hoping for the same sort of guy we'd seen last time out for Dana's benefit. But it was pretty clear. But I mean, as you pointed out, definitely lessons to be learned, and a great experience for Dana to have moving forward. One of those ones where, a loss isn't a death sentence. I don't believe it. I hate this era where, a loss ruins careers. It's, it's like a footy season. It's one game. You hear team sports and, more conventional sports that run in seasons. They say it all the time. You learn more from your losses than you do your wins. So no doubt. And Dana's young. He's incredibly tough. He's talented. He's going to be back. But what would you like to see as a next step for Dana from here on the immediate rebound?
Oh, excellent question. To be honest, I haven't given that too much thought. Run some names by me. It's something you've obviously spent a little bit of time considering.
I have not thought about it either until the words came out of my mouth. But I reckon, I don't know, because it's hard to tell. I know he's sort of changed up his management and all those type of things, and they wanted to focus on overseas opportunities. But I don't see anything wrong with coming back to Australia. Off the top of my head, I'd have to get the ratings up around featherweight or super featherweight. But he had such a great relationship with Tasman. It seemed Tasman were really working well for him. I don't know what happened there, why they sort of split or left. Or hopefully he took up this new opportunity overseas and went in a different direction, but didn't burn the bridges, or hopefully there's still a possible working relationship there. Because, imagine the Connor Wallace, the Justice Hooney card that's coming up, like whether or not Dana could go again that quick, but, maybe the first show next year, you think Dana would be a great inclusion on a show like that. Could they get someone from possibly Japan or the Philippines or Thailand or something for him that's has a fairly good record of not on the same level as Bruce Carrington. You're not going to find too many of those guys, but a comfortable step back down, which would be good for Dana to get back in the win column. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but you've had a few more seconds to think about it, Tony. What do you reckon?
Well, it'd definitely have to be an international opponent, because we just don't really have that many featherweights around in Australia, around that weight class or thereabouts. So, I think I'd like to see some investment in the matchmaking for Dana going forward, just in terms of, okay, here's a 3-fight plan. These are the type of fights we want to get some wins and get some more experience and fight a few different styles there. I hate to use the term rebuilding, but just kind of take that little step back and plan it out a little bit, rather than just kind of taking fights because they're being offered and they're in front of you. But one thing I do know about Dana is that I think he would have benefited immensely from his training camp in the States. I did hear that he handled himself very well against Blue Nose Lopez and Mark Castro in sparring, and he turned a few heads in the gyms over there. So I think both the experience for him directly and just in terms of raising his profile over there might get him another opportunity over in the States. But I'm with you. I'd love to see him fight back here and have a few more fights. And as you said, an Asian opponent, they tend to have some pretty tidy featherweights and plenty of them. I'm sure there'd be a pretty big pool there to pick from for him to fight back here at home.
Yeah, man, it's I don't know. I'm sure I've asked you this before over the years, but like you would think Australia and Japan, for that, quote unquote rivalry that we have going on, going back many, many years and decades, of course, but you would think there would be more crossover. Like they're really, just in terms of geographically where we are, you'd think the travel would be much easier and stuff like that, and the time zones almost identical. But there really isn't, for a rivalry that gets spoken about a fair bit, there isn't that much crossover on a year-to-year basis. It's kind of strange.
No, there's not. I'd like to see more of it. I think there's certainly more of an appreciation of Japanese boxing worldwide, and obviously that extends to Australia as well, than there has been in, I reckon, my lifetime. And I think the Japanese tend to like Australian fighters too, and we've had plenty of our blokes go over there and box in recent years, from guys like Wade Ryan to, blokes in the smaller weight divisions as well. So there is a relationship there, but it seems more often than not we're the ones doing the travelling.
Yeah, which I guess is fair enough. You're fighting on massive shows over there, but yeah, just general crossover. It doesn't seem like, the Japanese are on our radar very much, and we're kind of not really on their radar unless it's those sort of one-off things that might happen every once or twice a year. Which, anyway, just an observation. But yeah, I agree with you. I'd like to see more crossover too. I think it would only benefit both boxing markets for sure. But hopefully that's something that can change heading into 2025. But I guess the rest of that event, the elephant in the room, has to be talked about, Coxie. I mean, I just really don't care about the main event. I didn't care about it before. I don't care about it now. But that co-main event. My God, the rematch between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. Did you see it?
No, it was my partner's birthday. So
okay,
I watched Dana's fight in the morning, did the right thing and went out to lunch and had a lovely lunch out at a nice restaurant up here. And by the time that fight was on, I still wasn't in a position to watch it. And I got talked into, you've got to watch the main event. So I unfortunately I had to see that, but missed out on the Taylor Serrano fight. So I went back and sort of caught the highlights later, but I haven't watched it in full. So fire away. What are your thoughts?
Oh man, unbelievable action fight. I only saw highlights of the first one, if I'm being totally honest, but this one I watched in full. Have you even seen just still pictures of Serrano's cut that she had?
Yes.
How was that fight allowed to continue?
You could fit a finger in there, easy. Just
you could fit a fist. That's the first point. My God, and yeah, number two, how tough is Serrano? How tough is Katie Taylor too? But to have that gash and not even for a millisecond even think about, saying to the doctor or your corner you want out, that's holy hell. We can. I don't know. I can say whatever I want about, my enthusiasm for women's boxing compared to the men's side, whatever. But, wow, hats off. That's, incredibly impressive stuff. So if anyone hasn't seen that, I haven't seen the main event. I don't want to watch it. I just don't care about it. But definitely go back and see that Serrano-Taylor rematch. That was an absolute cracker. But
you want to see a third fight between them?
Why not? Why not, mate? I'd be down for it. What 100%. About you? I mean, would you want to watch any of their fights?
Yeah, for sure. Look, yes, mate.
We're back. Sorry, we just had a little glitch. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to see a third go round between them. I think the way women's boxing is, they've got superstars in the sport and they should be fighting each other as much as possible. I love the fact that weights don't seem to matter so much in female boxing, and they're making these big fights, they're getting these big paydays, and they're putting on exciting contests. So, yeah, why not go around again? And
where do you stand on the whole 10-2s versus 12-3s things? We know we have, a lot of fighters say, it should be 12-3s, but you have people like Lou DiBella who claim to have done all this medical research and that, 10-2s for the female brain is so much more safer and all this type of stuff. I don't know what to believe. I don't really mind either way. Do you have any sort of strong thoughts on the 10-2s versus 12-3s? Well,
I'm not aware of medical research suggesting it's more dangerous for women, so I'll park that to the side for now. All things being equal, I'd prefer 12-3s or even 10-3s. The 2-minute rounds are action-packed, but I just find them often hard to separate the boxers in such a short time frame. And I think, and you see it in men's boxing too, the first 2 minutes of a round can be very competitive, and then someone gains advantage in that last minute or 30 seconds. You go, okay, he's clearly won the round. I just find women's boxing incredibly tough to score, and when you have close competitive fights, I can understand why a lot of female boxers seem to frequently be screaming robbery, because there's so little to separate them in so many rounds so often.
I completely agree. I'm a bad judge of all boxing, and I predominantly watch the men's professional, and I'm a terrible judge, self-admittedly, but I'm the same. I find it impossible to score rounds with 2-minute rounds on the women's side. So I never even thought of 10-3s. That'd be a great compromise. I like that. That's kind of the best of both worlds there.
I reckon. And look, if you gave it a run with 10-3s and then it works, then down the track you could look at extending that to 12-3s as well, I suppose.
Yeah. I reckon you've nailed it, Coxie. 10-3 sounds perfect to me. Just wanted to go back, because we had a fair bit going on in between recording the last pod, mate. All right, mate. So little technical difficulty. Still getting used to the recording the video. So I reckon that's throwing up a few little issues at us. But that's all right. We can still get knocked down in a fight and finish the full distance. Might even win. So we'll see how we go. But, mate, that same weekend, the weekend before Danica Wells' fight on that YouTube event, I just wanted to go back because it'll come up as something being relevant that we're going to talk about soon. Keyshawn Davis, Gustavo Lemos. What a brilliant performance by Keyshawn. Hey, what were your thoughts?
Oh, look, I'm a big rap on Keyshawn Davis. I think he's the real deal. We often get these prospects hyped up and a little bit forced down our throats, and as they move through the grades, their ceiling becomes evident. I think Lemos was a little bit tailor-made for Davis, but he looked as good as anyone can look in there against an opponent like that. He was sharp, accurate, deadly. Picked his shots beautifully and had his opponent guessing the whole way through. Never just relied on one tactic, and really showed a wide arsenal of skills in there, I thought.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. I was really looking forward to that fight because as we spoke about on the last pod, Gustavo Lemos was coming off that. Well, a fight I thought he probably could have won against Richardson Hitchens. He was obviously. I love that old saying, boxer fighter and fighter boxer. And Gustavo Lemos certainly did that in that Richardson Hitchens fight. He made it rough. He was awkward. A great test of Hitchens. And again, probably should have got the win there. But when you're fighting a guy that has Keyshawn's eye, and to me, the thing that's kind of stood out with him in his pro career so far, it's not necessarily the speed, although he's got very good speed. It's not necessarily the power. I don't think he's going to end up being a huge puncher at the top world level. I don't really think he's a huge puncher now, but he has great timing. And if you don't set things up correctly, and if you just lunge in, literally jump in the air, Rocky Balboa style, and throw left hooks, like Shakur could do it too. But Keyshawn, he can see that coming before you even know you're going to do it. Yep. Before you've even loaded that left hip, he knows that left hook's coming. Like Lemos, I was disappointed. He served himself up on a platter to Keyshawn. But credit to Keyshawn, he ate it straight up too. So a sensational performance. I can't wait to see what's next for Keyshawn. He's calling out Tank Davis squared. I'm not good at maths, but that should be, I don't know, maybe it's too early for Keyshawn. What do you think? Do you reckon Keyshawn's right where he says he is at this point? I'd like to see another couple of fights, but what do you reckon?
Look, another couple of fights would benefit him, but I wouldn't begrudge him a shot at Tank Davis. I think that's a fight that I don't think it needs to marinate. Davis is desperate for an opponent with some sort of profile and hype behind him, and Keyshawn definitely fits that role. As far as development goes, I think you're absolutely right. If everything's being equal, you give him 2 more fights and then have him fight someone like Tank by the end of next year. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that one. The biggest knock on Tank Davis has always been his choice of opponents. If he beats Keyshawn Davis, there'll be people saying that the Keyshawn wasn't ready, but I still think there's enough to like about Keyshawn and enough of a name that I think Tank Davis would deserve a bit of credit if he won that fight and won it impressively.
So the fight I really want to see, I want to see the Olympic rematch. Keyshawn, Andy Cruz. Oh, man, I'd love it if they made that fight next. They won't. They'll want to do it in 3 years when there's world titles on the line, but yes. I'd love that. I think it'd be the perfect time. Keyshawn's got so much confidence. Andy Cruz kind of needs that guy in front of him to force him. We've seen in his 4 fights so far, 2 of them have kind of been a little lackluster-ish. So purely from a fan perspective. And, we talk about how we need more rivalries in boxing and trilogies and things like that, which, yeah, I agree with. I'll take them for sure. But why does it have to be like 3 fights in a row for world titles when guys are 32 and 33 and 34? What happens if Keyshawn and Andy Cruz fought now? the winner moves on. The other one's going to only have a slight detour. They're both going to get to world level if we believe what we're seeing in front of us with our own eyes. And then possibly there's a rematch down the line in a couple of years, and then there could be a third fight after that. Like, why do the trilogies have to be all back to back to back? I wouldn't mind seeing it spread out, but I guess there's a commercial and business reason for that. But from a fan perspective, I reckon that'd be a great move next. Get the Andy Cruz-Keyshawn rematch going.
Yeah, and look, I'm not against that at all. I like the idea of young prospects and contenders facing each other on the way up. I don't think we see it enough, and as you said, I think it's the business that gets in the way of it with different promoters wanting to protect their blue chip prospects all the way through to a big payday for a world title. So it's unfortunate we don't get to see it. It seems that if it does happen, it's almost more by accident. Maybe not the blue chip prospects, but guys who are coming through and then emerge as world champions and have that rematch down the track. But yeah, look, I don't think a loss is the end of the world, particularly for a young fighter this early in their career. And they're always a chance to rebuild from that and come back stronger.
And you just put the segue in there for me, mate, when you were talking about blue chip prospects. And we have to talk about on that same card, Abdullah Mason. The whole boxing world is talking about this guy. I wasn't that high on him. Not to say that he's not incredibly talented and doesn't have a big future, but I just wanted to see more at a bit higher of a level. He certainly gave us one hell of an entertaining fight on the undercard. Did you catch that one on the Keyshawn undercard?
I didn't. I only caught the highlights of that afterwards. So
okay, well that was basically the fight. It only went a round and a half, but. My God, if this guy's going to be in fights like that, which hopefully for his development he won't be, but if he is. And did you catch I forgot his opponent's name. Did you catch his haircut?
Yes.
Interesting style. But shout out to that guy. I apologize for not writing his name down. But yeah, that was a real fun card. I really enjoyed that. I love those top rank sort of. The Golden Boy and Top Rank do that so well with, not exactly the elite premium talent that they promote, kind of that next tier down. They bunch them all together, put them in great entertaining fights. Super fun card to watch. But
I agree with you there. You get those cards that a lot of the time they might be guys that you haven't seen much of, or it might be your first time seeing them, but they're just fun to watch. They may not have that big name at the top of the card, but you're pretty much guaranteed to have a fun afternoon of watching fights. A
lot of times I enjoy those cards more than the big pay-per-views, to be totally honest.
Well, you don't have the expectations going in, do you? You're like, I want to. I kind of want to. I want to see this. I want to see more of this kid. I want to, this should be a good test on paper. Or is this kid as good as they say he is? And you kind of just sit back and enjoy it. Whereas the big pay-per-view cards, first of all, you've paid money, so you want to be entertained. So you've got that expectation.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of balances it out too a little bit. Just the level of expectation with those big cards as opposed to these sort of next tier down ones. But yeah, you see great fights on there, and a lot of the time with names you don't know or are only vaguely familiar with, and yeah, big fan.
Mate, I reckon you nailed it. I think that's the exact reason that lack of expectation, in a good way, produces fireworks. So there you go. You've answered my question. Thank you very much. The following week, mate, we had a again, similar vein to what we were talking about, kind of that lower profile in terms of opponents at least. But we had Boots Anderson in the rematch with Karen Chikadze and Jesse Bam Rodriguez against recent Andrew Maloney. I was about to say, well, conqueror, I guess, on paper. I thought Andrew won that fight, but I'm biased, against Pedro Guevara. So, mate, not exactly the opponents with respect that we want Bam and Boots in with. But what do you make of both guys, mate? Let's start with Bam, because I feel like getting excited.
Yeah, look, we spoke about this fight last time I was on the pod, and I believe I said I'd pay to watch Bam hit a heavy bag. He's just... Bam's Bam. He just does stuff that other people can't do. He's just such an entertaining boxer with so many tools in his toolkit that I just don't know how anyone would easily solve that riddle. I know there's boxers out there that'd probably test him more than Guevara, but it's hard to tip against him. He's just such a magnificent fighter to watch.
It's unreal. Like, I think Guevara, and I didn't write it down, but I think he was something like 44-4-1 going in. Again, I thought Andrew did enough to beat him, especially with that torn bicep as well, Andrew, in the last fight. But, you know, we can talk about what Pedro Guevara isn't, but what he is really experienced, a former world champion, tough as nails and relentless. And bam, sliced through him with ease.
Like it wasn't even hot butter.
It wasn't even a hard fight for him. It wasn't. He didn't even make Bam work. You know. Oh man, I was blown away. It's Bam just does this to me every fight. Very similar to you, Coxie. He's just so impressive, and I don't even know how to what the words are, what to compare him to. For me, Bam's just his own. Yeah, his own thing, like, you know, Naoya Inoue, who we'll talk about later, is very similar as well. These guys come along. Lomachenko for a time was like that as well. They come along and, you know, you're in there with two gloves on your hand and you're throwing punches, but they seem to be able to do things in a way that no one's ever done before. And we could draw similarities here and there to other guys, but ultimately they are there, you know, in such a, you know, a rather limited sport, I guess, in terms of what it actually is. Two blokes in a ring punching each other shirtless. He just does it in ways that I've at least never seen. It blows my mind. I'm rambling. I don't know what else to say about the guy. He's just so goddamn impressive.
He either leaves you at a loss for words, or it's you just struggle
talking garbage like I was just doing.
No, we're just trying to find the words to describe him. And it's just one of those talents that you only have to see him once, and you just know that the kid's special and he does things that other people can't do. And you can sit there literally and watch frame by frame and still go, I still don't know how he turned that angle from that position to land that punch or whatever. It's just beautiful to watch. Poetry in motion.
Unbelievable, that guy. The sky is the limit, truly, for that guy. And we talk about another who some were potentially putting on pound for pound lists, or at least saying a pound for pound number one yet to be anointed. Boots Ennis in the rather unwanted rematch with Karen Jakazian. The second fight was certainly better than the first. I don't know, Coxie. I'll throw it to you first, mate. What were your thoughts at the end of those 12 rounds?
Well, predominantly just how hittable Ennis was. Look, he won the fight. He was made to work for it, but he ate plenty of shots during those 12 rounds. If there weren't question marks around him before, I think there's every reason to have question marks there now, particularly when you're talking about, you know, fights with Virgil Ortiz Jr. or other big names in and around 147, 154 pounds. I still think he's a super talented fighter, but there's obviously things he's going to have to go back to the gym and consciously work on and not just expect his raw talent to get him through.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, first of all credit to Jakazian for changing up his style and definitely made it a much better fight. He tried his guts out, Jakazian, who is it, you know, unknown, certainly, and not someone that I was clamouring for to even really see at all. Unfortunately, there's just those guys that come from different markets that you're not familiar with, and, you know, they rightly or wrongly just aren't in the forefront of people's minds. Certainly Jakazian wasn't for me, but all credit to you for being tough and making that a fight. Look, it was an entertaining fight. If it was fighter A, fighter B, you didn't know either and you were just watching it. But disappointed is a very strong word, so I wouldn't use that. But I was more surprised. You know, Boots Ennis is so, again, I'll use that word Mike Altamura perfectly describes Jai Opetaia with. And Jai Opetaia is actually, now that I realise it, a really good example. Jai's so dynamic. So is Boots. But Jai has such a better blend with the fundamentals than Boots does. To me, this performance from Boots, it just seemed to be spam Jakazian with athletic power shots from all different angles and see what happens. And it didn't really work for the whole 12 rounds. It did enough to win him the fight, but I never really saw a change. Never saw an adjustment. Never saw a plan B. It was kind of just spam this guy with athletic power shots from all angles and eventually will knock him out. I was very disappointed in the advice he was getting from his corner. Who, as we know, Bosie Ennis seems to be a fantastic trainer. Got Andy Cruz now as well. Their game plans have never failed them, and this one certainly didn't either. But yeah, I don't know. He was just doing the Teofimo Senior thing, get rid of this guy, knock him out, I don't know.
And he was saying that from the 6th round or something like that. And yeah, there wasn't a lot of great direction there, and I also think boxers tune out to just being having the same thing shouted at them over and over again, and then either they've got to figure it out for themselves, or hope that something just changes out of the blue. But I thought I found it quite bizarre, to be honest. I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know why he thought that Chikuzian would just suddenly wilt and fall there. But I think anytime you're solely relying on in this case, your athleticism combined with your power, that you're probably not reading the play properly, and you probably have to do a little bit more work in just how to apply your skills a little bit better.
And even though Boots is huge, and I agree, mate, but even though Boots is like huge for the weight, I still wouldn't categorize him as like this one-punch knockout artist.
No.
Like everyone thinks they're Deontay Wilder these days. Like Boots' strength has always been accuracy and timing. Yep. And just like forcing these huge overhand rights and leaping left uppercuts and all these things, forcing it, you're not necessarily telegraphing it, but this is a game of milliseconds, and you're giving your opponent those extra milliseconds he needs just to tuck the chin or just get the glove up and partially block a shot. So it just seemed a kind of a unintelligent performance from Boots, yep. And probably more to your point, from the corner as well. I think there's a lot of lessons to take out of that. The guy's still got ultra potential. I'm a huge believer in fighting up and down to the level of your competition. I think it's far more prevalent in this sport than probably any other, to be honest. So I'm sure if that fight with Virgil Ortiz was to happen next for Boots, we're going to get a totally different with respect to Chikadze, and a completely different switched on version, from Boots himself and probably from the training team as well. But let's assume that fight's going next. Turkey wants it, and as we know, Turkey gets what Turkey wants, but he's prepared to pay for it, so good on him. How do you see that fight going, mate?
I'd favour Ortiz Jr., but I'm with you. I think the fact there is room for improvement in Ennis from that last performance, and as you rightly pointed out, a rematch that no one wanted, least of all Boots and his team, probably a little bit hard to get up for as well, and just in training camp and on the night, and it's you're being forced into this mandatory that really, it's a payday, but other than that, is largely seen as a waste of time, and that's the way boxing Twitter was reporting it, the boxing media was reporting it that way. So hard to have that enthusiasm yourself when you're stepping into the ring. I certainly wouldn't write Boots off in that fight with Ortiz Jr. I would absolutely expect a much better showing there. And I think it's an interesting clash of styles as well. The pressure and the power from Ortiz Jr. and the athleticism and skill from Boots. That, it'd be interesting just to see that style match up alone and see which one can make the necessary adjustments. I could see Boots having to do it. And I could see Ortiz having to do it if he's getting nailed coming in from Boots himself. So, bring it on, I say.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely hope that happens next. That would be excellent. And, mate, we'll move our attention to another really awesome card, the Latino Night Riyadh season card. Oh, it was fantastic. Had some, the Jose Ramirez-Arnold Barboza fight wasn't exactly a barn burner, but mate, there was a couple of excellent performances there, and I wanted to talk about one of your faves. And you have established this from day one with this particular fighter. You are the leader of the bandwagon. You're driving the train. Anyone else who says that they are a fan of this guy is just biting your style. That has been fully established. Oscar Collazo over recent Alex Winwood opponent, Thamanu Neomtrong's knockout CP Freshmart. Mate, I'm going to take a backseat on the bus, but I would like your permission to get on it because what a fantastic performance by Collazo, eh?
Mate, I love a guy in an ethnic hat, so Collazo was always gonna be a fan favourite of mine. Talking about future pound for pound stars, I firmly believe he'll be up on those pound for pound lists soon enough, providing the people compiling them are taking enough notice of the lighter weight classes.
Yes.
His opponent very well established, experienced, long-reigning champion, and Collazo made him look, let's be honest, second rate. That's how good the kid is. I'm not sure who who there is in the division that would really test him, and I mean test him properly. But I just love seeing the kid fight, and again, very dynamic fighter. And we've seen him. I think the fight before this one, his opponent kind of tried to rough him up and had some limited success, and he just made the necessary adjustments and just punched his way home. Just a great fighter to watch. And if people out there haven't seen Collazo fight or don't typically watch the lighter weight classes, I say get involved. You'll see some excellent action, some big punches down in those weights too, unlike a lot of people believe, and great skill level. So bring it on.
Absolutely. And it kind of reminded me a little bit, and obviously this is a massively huge comparison. I don't mean it fully, but Naoya Inoue, he doesn't really do it these days, but back when he was at super flyweight, and especially even earlier on, he would almost use the left hook like a jab. Like he didn't really jab that much. He was so fast that he could use the left hook. Now guys are bigger, so he kind of needs to establish the range a bit more and throw that use the jabs, the straight jab more so than being able to get away with that left hook. But Collazo found a home for that right hook like almost instantly against a guy that was so experienced. I'm unbelievably impressive, and that right hook just gave Freshmart fits from the jump, which Colosso's only had like 11 fights, hasn't he? Something like that. Maybe less. I should doctor it.
It's not very many. It's certainly lightly raced, as they say.
Yeah, man, unreal performance. I was blown away. Congrats to Collazo. But also we had a fight I was not expecting much out of, to be totally honest, and I was completely wrong. I'll put my hand up for sure on that one. William Zepeda was back fighting Tevin Farmer, who fought the absolute fight of his life, Tevin Farmer. I mean, I wasn't really scoring it, so with the knockdown, you could probably see a fair case for a Farmer victory. Were you surprised that we got that version of Tevin Coxey before we get into the actual result? Was that what you had even thought was possible? Because I certainly didn't.
No, not at all. I thought the younger, fresher man who, throws a million punches around was not going to walk through him, but would just be too busy, too young, too fresh for the ex-champion there, who I probably haven't seen enough of Farmer in recent years to have a good gauge on him. But I think everyone was expecting the faded former world champ to turn up and be game but outclassed and probably get stopped in 9 rounds or something like that. But geez, Peter had his absolute hands full with him. And I think from just even before the knockdown, a few rounds in, you kind of went, this is a really competitive fight. This is something I was not expecting. And that was a fight I thoroughly enjoyed.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was crazy. I think it was like the end of the 3rd round where the bell went and Farmer, the ref breaks the action. Farmer turns and walks back to his corner and the camera was on him, and he just took this huge deep breath and like just sort of had that, not a look of shock on his face, but like a Jesus Christ, this is going to be a rough night. And I saw that and I was like, oh, God, is this the point where the volume and the pressure from Zepeda really starts to chip away at Farmer? To his credit, he knocked him down in the next round and he just kept finding a way to plant his feet and land beautiful counter shots and use Zepeda's forward aggression against him, which, we've seen game plans like that work before with aggressive guys, but to Farmer's credit, I didn't think going in he would have the size or the power or even the ability or the conditioning to do it, especially I think he's 34 now, maybe even 35 after that layoff. Completely proved me wrong, Tevin Farmer. I never saw the Raymond Murataya fight, which apparently, going from comments I've read and stuff like that, was very similar in that Farmer pushed him. So, mate, maybe he was just at the wrong weight all these years. Maybe he was always a lightweight and he was just draining himself so bad to get down to 130. And, we've missed years of this version of Farmer. I want to see more. I was unbelievably impressed.
Oh, 100%. And like you, I didn't think he'd have the legs to be able to do that for the whole fight, to use that in and out action and walk Zepeda onto his shots all night. But he boxed brilliantly, and again, run him out again as soon as possible. Put him in against any of the young prospects coming through, and I'd love a comeback story like Farmer beating a young prospect and getting a world title shot at lightweight. I love stories like that. So good luck to him, and I want to see more of this version of him up at 135. He looked really good.
Yeah, absolutely, mate, 100%. And hopefully you're writing some stories on him soon and he's rewarded with some more opportunities. We'll go to the main event of that card, mate. One I was super keen on, especially with the Aussie Jai Opetaia implications possibly in the future, hopefully in the near future. But we had Chris Billum-Smith defending his WBO Cruiserweight title against Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. And again, this one did not go the way I thought either. I was really expecting Chris Billum-Smith's sort of power and natural size to kind of take over during the mid-rounds. And I don't know if he was going to stop Zurdo, but I thought it would sort of start getting a little bit more one-sided on the back end, maybe late stoppage, sort of 8-4-ish on points for Billum-Smith. And, man, after the first round, during the first round, Billum-Smith, it looks like it was all going according to plan, at least from how I envisioned it going in, was busting Zurdo clean with shots, and it looked like Zurdo was hurt a couple of times and like a little bit taken aback from the power, but he must have some of that Nikita Zoo in him, because from the second round onwards, those shots just had zero effect. He planted his feet. He had the better fundamental footwork. He had those, not slow, but those methodical foot positions to find those angles and fight off shots. Now, they kept talking about how, athletic Zurdo is. I'm not sure I'd call him, athletic in terms of how Jai is athletic, but he's so fundamentally sound. There's no wasted movement. Every step, every change of position, every punch, there's a purpose to it all. There's zero wasted movement, which is a great way to fight up at 200 pounds too. But, again, I'm sort of rambling. Yeah, I was absolutely impressed by Zurdo, who won a pretty clear decision on points, and Billum-Smith was busted up again. God, that guy's tough, but it gets hard to watch guys swell up and cut and bleed like that all the time. But I guess that's that classic Brit. Unfortunately, that's what they're kind of known for. We're sort of known for it too, us the Aussies down here. But anyway, mate, I'm rambling again. What'd you make of that fight? How good was it?
Oh, it was a great fight, and Chris Billum-Smith is I'm not the biggest fan of his style, but as a person, he's a hard bloke not to like. And Zurdo just seemed to get stronger and stronger as the fight went on, and more nasty too. Let's face it, he was roughing him up pretty bad in the back half of that fight. I think if there was any doubt that Zurdo doesn't belong at 200 pounds, well, he proved those doubters wrong. He absolutely does. I agree with you that he's. I wouldn't call him athletic at all. That's not the way I define athletic. But as you said, fundamentally sound, and when you've got solid fundamentals like that, you can really capitalise on your opponent's mistakes and make the most out of opportunities when they're in front of you. So, number 2 guy in the division behind Opetaia, I think. I don't think anyone would argue with that. And hopefully we see those two lock horns in the new year.
Well, you just said it, mate. How do you see a fight like that going down? And obviously, we have to acknowledge Jai's got a mandatory defence against Hussein Sincara, which we'll talk about later. We don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, but, we're fantasy matchmakers, so we'll indulge ourselves in a bit of fantasy, which is, I think, a pretty good possibility of happening into 2025. How do you see that fight playing out?
Well, talking about athleticism versus fundamentals, that's exactly what this fight is. I could see Jai outboxing Zurdo early on, and as Zurdo, the later the fight gets, and Jai's shown to be vulnerable is probably a stretch, but his fights that have gone late, certainly against Breedis, the troubles come from him in those later rounds. So I think that's the really interesting part of that fight. I don't know if Jai could knock out Zurdo. There's nothing to suggest that Zurdo has a terrible chin, and as dynamic a puncher as Jai is, I think that KO would have to come in the first 6 rounds. But I'd probably more envisage it being a points win for Opetaia that gets increasingly entertaining and competitive as the rounds go on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sort of thinking, the only loss of Zurdo's career was against Dimitri Bivol, where that, we were talking about that great fundamental purposeful footwork, but he's very stationary, which can be a great thing. But against Bivol, who was playing with the range in and out, side to side, changing the angles constantly, he was a step behind the whole fight. If there's anyone at cruiserweight who can do that, it's Jai. I think Jai's a stylistic nightmare for Zerto. I reckon Jai does it quite comfortably. Again, I don't know if it would stop him because Zerto's bloody tough, but he did start at 168. Now we're up at 200, and Jai can punch. I'm not sure. Goulamirian can punch. Billum Smith can punch. Again, I don't think Jai's like a classic one-punch knockout guy at world level, but I think he's the harder puncher at 200 pounds than the other two guys he's fought. So, I reckon we could be seeing a late stoppage there. I like Jai big time. I think it'd be wide on points, possible late stoppage. But unless Jai gets sucked into a war, I just think he's too mobile. He's not going to be in front. He's not going to give Zerto. He's not going to be in the position that Zerto needs him to be to land his offense. I think Jai's just he's too dynamic. Thanks, Mike. Still using your word all these years later, mate. But it's the perfect word. He's just too dynamic for these guys, and Zerto's just a little bit too slow on the feet, I think. But I'm also insanely biased.
And there does seem to be a genuine appetite for this fight to happen as well. So I think if Jai gets past his mandatory, which we all believe he should pretty comfortably, that frees up his dance card for the rest of the year. So fingers crossed we get Jai and Zerto within the first 6 months of 2025.
And if the IBF throw another mandatory at him, oh, mate, drop the belt and just keep the ring. Everyone knows you're the champ. You don't need it. Because the amount of mandatories this guy's had and what the IBF are doing to him is just unbelievable. But anyway, we'll talk about Jai later in the pod. But, mate, now I have to put my hand up here. I want to talk to you about 3 fights. None of them I've seen, and they all involve Aussies. So I'm pretty embarrassed. I haven't seen any of them, but I'm pretty sure you have. And we'll start with Floyd Masson, who had a massive opportunity against Mateusz Masternak in Poland a couple of weeks back. I know you saw that fight, and we purposely haven't spoken about it since. So I've been dying to know. What were your thoughts, mate?
Floyd boxed the fight of his life, and in my opinion, got stiffed on the cards.
Wow, damn it!
Masternak came on strong late, but I still didn't think he wasn't doing enough to perhaps win rounds. So maybe I was a little bit biased against the Polish fighter. But even then, even if I gave him the rounds where I thought he had pockets of success, moments where he did land a couple of hard shots, I still don't see him winning 7 rounds to claim that fight. I just don't. I don't even think I could give him 6 rounds. Floyd boxed a beautiful fight, didn't get dragged into a brawl. Everything he says before every fight, I'm working on not getting dragged into brawls, and he did that beautifully and wasn't rewarded for it, which I found really frustrating because it's always been his thing. Box beautifully, cop a couple to the chin and jump into the trenches and trade and make for an entertaining fight. And really that's where he's come unstuck in the past. This time he boxed a beautifully disciplined fight the whole way through. Ended up with as bad a cauliflower ear as you'll ever see. And if you want to see someone get their ear drained, it's on his Facebook page, getting the needle in there after the fight. It was pretty horrible stuff. But aside from that injury, I thought he boxed beautifully. And again, it's always a tough ask going into your opponent's backyard, and you always sort of got your fingers crossed that the judges will do the right thing. And in my opinion, they didn't on this occasion. Even when they were standing in centre ring and they were about to announce the winner, Masternak looked defeated and deflated in there, and he didn't even look particularly comfortable accepting the win. I don't think he believed he won the fight himself.
Yeah, the fighters know, don't they? So I believe that's the second fight that Floyd's had with Blair Studley.
Yes.
What have you made of the pairing? And obviously I haven't seen this fight, so I can't comment. Has there been sort of any obvious changes in style or tactics that you've been able to sort of pick up on that maybe has been the Studley influence?
Just being more disciplined about boxing smart. Floyd's got all those boxing skills. It's just that natural inclination to be in entertaining fights. His favourite fight is Arturo Gatti, and he's always said that those are the type of fights I grew up wanting to be in, those blood and guts wars and coming out on top, but just a more disciplined version. I think the skills have always been there, and it's just, I guess, about getting Floyd to stay focused on boxing smart. I do know from speaking with Floyd ahead of this fight that that he's thinks Blair's the absolute perfect trainer for him. He said he's never had a trainer like this before that he gels with so much. And I think that the performance from Floyd sort of showed that the pairing is working. When you've got that trust there with your trainer, that it's not just about what your trainer's teaching you in the gym, but just having that belief in the coach in your corner there. And I think there's a real mutual respect between the two that's been very beneficial to Floyd.
Yeah. Wow, it's so disappointing. You do the hard work, you travel, you go to the opponent's backyard, you get the job done, and you ultimately get stiffed. That's brutal. But we've seen it before. Hopefully, he's rewarded with another opportunity. But man, I'm gonna have to track down video of this fight. I want to watch that now. But well, thanks for sharing, Coxie. I imagine there's probably people listening and watching that haven't seen that fight either. So. Yeah, you've piqued my interest. I'm getting distracted. But anyway, another fight. I'm not sure if you've seen this one. I didn't even know how to watch. This card was just like, what is going on with Stan? We could do a whole Stan boxing. We could do a whole different pod just about that. I don't know what's going on with these guys. Do they know promotion means people need to know when the event is and how to watch it? I don't even know what's going on with these guys. The main event fell out with Terzievsky... I don't know, complaining about money, leaving the day of the fight, was it? Or the day of the weigh-in?
I think he flew out the morning of the fight.
Wow. Anyway.
What I was told is that the contract stated that he needed to be paid a week before the fight. He obviously flew up anyway, despite not being paid in advance. Obviously went through with the weigh-in. Again, this is just what I've been told, so I haven't fact-checked it against, everyone involved. But they finally made the payment on the morning of the fight, but Terzievsky's team were already at the airport ready to fly back to Melbourne. So even though the money gets paid on the day of the fight, you go, well, you would have spent the whole night stressing about it, not getting good sleep, everything else. So, yeah, I guess that was the position they took. We don't want to come in half-baked and not mentally switched on. So, yeah, there you go.
Did they give the money back or they take that as well?
That was the first thing I wondered, and I thought it's not even worth thinking about. Who knows?
Well, mate, you've been in professional teams. You've been in corners. You've been around fighters for decades. What is the industry standard? When do most guys... when do you get paid? I always just assumed it was when the fight was over. You've done the work, so then you get paid for it. What's the industry standard? Yeah,
certainly that's always been the standard at the moderate level that I've been involved in. I do recall one time being told straight after our fighter won the main event, quick, get to the change rooms and get your money from the promoter before he leaves the venue, which we had to do, quite a well-known trainer in Melbourne. But yeah, look, it's always been after the fight. But again, these are fairly low level fights, no TV, and the money comes from the gate and the bar at the end of the night. So yeah, that's always been the standard.
Anyway, yeah, weird, just weird. I don't know whose side I'm on in that. None of my business really. But on the undercard, and I'm spewing this fight was on this weird Stan event. I don't know if it was a pay-per-view, if it was I don't know what it was, but Paulo Acuso and Clay Waterman apparently had a great 10-round tear-up. Did you see it? Because I certainly didn't.
No, like you. Stuff on Stan's just lost to me. I don't have a subscription to Stan. I think you need to subscribe to Stan and then get the additional sports package on top of that. And if I'm doing that, spending $35 or whatever a month to watch 3 cards a year, that doesn't represent value to money for me. So yeah, haven't seen it.
Yeah, we complain when our sport's hidden behind a paywall, and rightfully so. It's so limiting in terms of exposure. So Stan go, you reckon that's bad? We're going to put it behind 2 paywalls. Check this out. Well, exactly. No, we won't, because we don't know how to bloody access it. So,
But like you, I
anyway.
did hear good things about that fight, and that's one that hopefully I can. Someone's uploaded somewhere on the interwebs, and we can go back and watch that maybe over a quieter time in January when the fights are a little bit slower. But I'd love to go back and watch it and see it with my own eyes. But yeah, can't really offer too much commentary on that one, I'm afraid.
Yeah, just get it together, please. But anyway, a fight I didn't watch, but I know you did, involving another one of your favourites, mate. Wade Ryan was over in France. Now, I did not write the opponent's name down, so I apologise in advance. Walk us through it, mate. From what I understand, it was a bit of a tough one to watch.
Yeah, it was. First of all, I just want to speak a little bit about the venue. It was held in a Westfield shopping centre.
Okay.
You could literally see people going up and down the escalators in the background doing their Christmas shopping, which was boxing is one of these sports when you go just when you thought you'd seen it all.
Wow.
So it was a free event over there, I believe, and I think they were anticipating something like 5,000 people there. So just from a visiting boxer's perspective, it must have been a bit of a odd environment to walk out into. The production was great. If a little odd just because of the setting. Look, Wade's never been sort of quick of hand. His footwork's good, but I wouldn't typify that as quick footwork. And his timing encounters have been his strength. Bakari, I think, came in with a good game plan. He's a very athletic fighter, which seems to be the topic of the day today, athleticism. He actually made Wade come forward to him for the first couple of rounds, which kind of I do not think is Wade Ryan's strength at all. He has that he likes to time people coming to him with his counter shots and surprise them. With Wade coming forward, he looked visually kind of slow and just not in any sort of rhythm and just uncomfortable with having to fight that style of fight. So I think Bakari kind of sucked him into the style that he wanted. And then I think after about the third round, just started using his own speed and athleticism and timing to light Wade up. So I can't remember off the top of my head which round it got stopped in, the seventh, I think it was. Wade went down, I think in the sixth, and then again in the seventh, and the corner stopped the fight. But he really looked like he was on a hiding to nothing by that stage, and very tough, brave, proud man, Wade Ryan, and always proven durable in the past. It was a tough watch, and you never like seeing guys like good guys in the sport sort of go out like that, but yeah, just the one-sided nature of it, you start to wonder how much Wade Ryan has left.
Yeah. Do you know how old he is?
I want to say 34.
Okay. Yeah. So we're certainly closer to the end than the beginning. We can.
Yeah, and look, he turned pro, I think, probably 22 or something like that, or around that. So he's been around for a long time, and
fought everyone.
Has fought, absolutely. Go through his record and see all the blokes he fought, and a lot of tough, grueling fights in there too. So, we'll wait and see what the future holds, whether that's it for him or if he wants to go around again. I mean, I'd love to see him have a farewell fight in Gunnedah. I reckon that'd be ideal. Cool. Just a nice little swan song in front of his hometown crowd.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, one of the good guys. So good luck to Wade for whatever comes next. We'll keep our eyes peeled. But mate, just before we get on to the upcoming schedule, which is pretty loaded, mind you. Surprisingly, I didn't think it would be this loaded in December. But just a couple of little news notes I wanted to get your thoughts on. George Kambosos, he's gone up to 140 and he's signed with Matchroom. Good move?
Sure, why not?
On to the next.
No, look, I don't know what other options were out there for George, to be honest. I don't know how he fares at 140 pounds. I know he's quite a tall kid for lightweight, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can simply hang an extra 5 pounds on your frame and carry on as per usual. I guess that's where he sees the opportunities. Obviously, Matchroom have quite a position in the 140-pound division. They've got a lot of contenders there, and they've obviously got Liam Paro as well. And that fight would seem to be a natural homecoming fight for Paro next year, in terms of selling tickets and having international intrigue, I suppose. There's other fights I'd much prefer to see Paro in, but look, off the top of my head, I'd imagine they could put Kambosos in with someone like a Regis Prograis in the States or something like that, just to get him accustomed to the weight, and then look at a Paro fight second half of next year. I'm guessing that's the sort of thing they're planning on.
Well, I haven't really thought about it, but you just gave two options then, and I like option number 2 infinitely better than option number 1. I mean, you know, I'm as biased to the Aussies as probably anyone is, and I'll put my hand up and admit it, no worries. But at the same time, sometimes you just got to be real, you know. And if George ever sees or hears this, he will probably hate me forever and annihilate me on Twitter, and fair enough. I can't stop him in any regard, but he's probably 0-4 in his last 4 fights. You know, and that win against Teofimo was absolutely amazing. I'll never forget where I was. One of the great sporting moments ever that I've ever seen, maybe in the history of Australian sport. It's got to be in the conversation. Just an unbelievable performance, an unbelievable afternoon for us here. He does not get the credit globally that he should for that win. It was amazing. There's no excuses on Tio's side that he's come up with. I don't believe any of it. That's all credit to George. But since then, the 2 losses to Haney were clear. If it's fighter A and fighter B and no one's carrying an Australian flag, I thought fighter B won Maxi Hughes. That's just being as honest as I can, and he obviously lost to Lomachenko. It would break my heart in terms of like meritocracy to see George move up a weight division and immediately get gifted a world title shot. Like that's to be honest, that's everything that's wrong with boxing. But personally, I wouldn't mind seeing it because the guy deserves as much money and opportunity as he possibly can. That win against Teo and all the hard yards he did before that, I get both sides, but from a sporting context, and we're always talking about this sport not taking itself seriously, so how can anyone else take it seriously, and how can new fans take it seriously when all this crazy stuff happens? This is a perfect example of it. They'd be like, well, the guy hasn't won a fight for 3 years, you know. Well, he has, but, you know, really. How can he just move up a weight class and get a world title opportunity just because he's another Aussie and they want to do this massive show in Australia? I wouldn't like to see it from that meritocracy sort of standpoint, but it's probably going to happen.
You'll be pleased to know the WBO have already ranked him at, I think, number 7 at 140 pounds despite not fighting there.
How? Oh, God.
But yeah, look, I mean, you could sell a rematch with Teofimo down the track, but I certainly think you need to, you know, to even be put in the rankings, you should at least have a fight at the weight.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure of the rules with the various different sanctioning bodies, if that's the way that some of them do it and some of them don't. But yeah, look, whether it's a Paro fight or they target Teofimo, either one's an option. But again, you know, negotiations being what they are, it's sometimes hard to get what you want.
I just wish there was more of like, you know, and I'm not a soccer fan at all, but like in some of the European soccer leagues, there's like that relegation system to get into the tier, you know. I've just always kind of looked at the top 10 like that. So once you get into the top 10, get your opportunities. If you lose a couple, well, you're out of the top 10. So inherently you have to take a step back and work your way back there. And for me, George is in that position, either at lightweight or especially at 140. But I can imagine understanding his mindset of like, mate, I've given blood, sweat and tears and decades to the hardest sport in the world. I've paid for it. I've missed months of my family, my children's lives. Like, I'm getting the biggest opportunities for the most amount of money and everyone can get stuffed. Totally agree with him. But again, it's a sport. You know, there has to be meritocracy. That, you know, if that's what's the point of having a top 10 if anyone can just get an opportunity out of nowhere? You know what I mean? I see both sides, you know. And again, George will hate me forever, and fair enough. But I don't think this pod's quite on his radar, so I think we're safe there. But you know, I like option 2, Prograis in America. I'd love that. But I think it's a good matchup, a good link up with Matchroom. And I think the guy's got plenty more left. Whether or not it's at the top end, I think just needs to be proven with a win or two at a level below and then go again. But we'll see what happens. But anyway, now, mate, we're going to get real in the weeds here. Do you mind?
No, far away.
Because I need you to explain some stuff to me. You sent me a link to a like business review article or something, or some Financial Times or something like that, saying that DAZN is going to be purchasing potentially a 65% stake in Foxtel, buying out some media conglomerate or whatever. I can just ramble and imagine what that means, but I don't actually know. What are, in real terms and specifically related to Aussie boxing and the broadcasting of it, what does that mean if it were to actually happen?
I'm glad you asked that question, Zach, because fucked if I know.
He's done it again. Okay, well, we're in the same boat again.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we can sit here and kind of, come up with different scenarios or how it plays out. But for all I know, it's simply a business purchase, and then it's just business as usual and no real changes. Or there could be a raft of changes. We think about it from a boxing perspective, but you've got to imagine that the real thing they're buying up is the AFL rights, the NRL rights, the cricket rights, those sort of things that Fox Sports and KO have in their control. So I'm not sure that the boxing will be impacted or largely impacted, or certainly the deal with No Limit will change in the near future at all, but it might be something they'd look at sort of revamping and doing something different with down the track. But as for the future of, say, KO, I don't know if that then gets rolled into the DAZN platform, which is potentially something they could do. Who knows at this stage?
Man, I think it would be great if they could like simulcast, obviously the No Limit shows globally on DAZN. Mate, as much as I've slandered Foxtel, I hate Foxtel. They're the worst. I hope DAZN buy them out and just end them. But it's absolute scumbag of a company. But so it got a bit real. But that's truly what I think. I hate Foxtel. And I've sort of come to the conclusion lately, I'm so critical of the way No Limit promote and put on shows. They're doing 12 shows a year or 11, whatever. 6 pay-per-view and a couple free. Surely the Rose brothers understand the limitations of that model in terms of growth and exposure for their fighters. They have to. There's no way they can't. Like, I'm an idiot and I know how limiting it is. So it must be Foxtel. I'm thinking now, it's got to be Foxtel that say, okay, this is the broadcast deal, but we need X amount of shows a year to be pay-per-view because we want to be getting, even if it's only small revenue, we'd rather be getting something in return rather than just the advertising and all that type of thing. So I don't know. I have no inside information. That's what I'm thinking. But again, we talk about limiting, like No Limit and Foxtel. I've just slandered them. It's the biggest and best platform for boxing in the country. Within Australia, you're going to get the most coverage. I wish it was Ace Boxing on 7+. I wish it was Tasman on DAZN. If I said that, it would be a lie. It's Foxtel and No Limit. But the limiting factor to that is the global accessibility. No one from overseas can see it. So with this DAZN link up, I would love it if there was a way to simulcast that content that is on Fox and KO locally to a wider audience. I know there would be demand for it, probably not like huge, but certainly people in places all over the world would be interested to watch it if they can. So from that perspective, it would seem great. But yeah, in terms of like the business dynamic and what would happen there and there, I'm with you. I have no idea. I just hope Foxtel gets shut down immediately because I hate them. And I'm a decade-long customer, so they've got thousands of bucks out of me. So I feel like I can say whatever I want. I hate Foxtel.
You've earned the right, mate.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with those guys moving forward. But let's get into some fights, mate, coming up. So we've got a loaded month.
Just before we do, can I just look back at one fight that I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to see from this week over in Japan? Shu Utsuku versus Katsuya Yasuda.
I did not see this.
This was one of the funnest fights I've seen this year. I think there was 5 knockdowns from the 4th round to the 6th when the fight ended.
Okay.
Yasuda has kind of a weird kind of crafty style. He looks I don't know, almost like a mix between boxer size and sharp punching. I don't know. It's very difficult to.
You've got me intrigued.
To explain. But he's a busy fighter, and he was getting the better of the action against Yasuda, who was a southpaw, who just kind of tuck in while in range, wear shots on the gloves, and then look for that counter. He did that to great effect in the fourth round. He was dropped himself early in the fourth, and you sort of thought, okay, this is the turning point of the fight. It's sort of been Itsuku the whole way through. He was getting wobbled around the ring. When he got dropped heavily. He came back with a counter of his own and sent Itsuku down. Itsuku was just on Queer Street. He was struggling to get out of the round. The fifth round, he started on shaky legs, but took him sort of a minute to get back in, and then he overwhelmed Yasuda with his volume and looked well on his way to victory until he got caught with another counter and went down again. Then Itsuku in the sixth came over the top of Yasuda and sent him down twice again. So 5 knockdowns in 3 rounds, and it is, for me, the best 3-round sequence I've seen this year. That just, as soon as you think this guy's getting the better of the other one, the script gets flipped and you just didn't know which way the fight was going. The only thing you got a sense of was that it wasn't going the distance, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Damn. So this was like the Zepeda Baranchik of Japan.
Yes, pretty much, yeah.
Wow, okay. So where does this sort of rate in your genuine kind of fight of the year rankings? Like, would it be clubhouse leader so far?
I think the real question when you're kind of talking about fights of the year is what level you're prepared to go down to, because I'm sure Tim Boxeo's fight of the year will be some fight that we've never even heard of. But
it'll be awesome.
A 60-round slugfest between heavyweights in Eastern Europe or something like that. But
yeah.
I certainly think this ticks all the boxes, and I certainly think that fourth round with the trading of knockdowns is certainly deserves to be in the discussion for fight of the year. So this was for a regional lightweight belt, so the level isn't right up there, but it's not right down there either. Both decent fighters, but neither of them you looked at and went, okay, I'd love to see him in a world title fight. I think he's ready right now. But just a very fun, entertaining fight.
Awesome. Damn, I've got to put that on the list. All right, I've missed tons the last couple of weeks. I've got to step my game up. Thanks for sure. I'm pumped to watch that, Coxie. I've got to track down some video of that. That'll be awesome.
I can send you through a link after we're done, mate.
That's what I was hinting at. Thank you, son. So, mate, let's move on to some stuff happening tomorrow, Saturday, the 30th of November. There actually is a really good fight in Queensland. Jake Wiley's fighting Dylan Emery. I don't believe there's any stream or anything for that show. But at the same time, the final PBS show of the year down in Melbourne on the Kings of Combat show. This card has changed so much over the last couple of weeks. So as of this morning, which is Friday morning, so the day of the weigh-ins. Maybe it's even changed since then, but I believe it's going to be Kareem Matala. Was supposed to be fighting Joshua Francis. He's out. Now he's fighting Dakarmad Armstrong, who's 0-2. Interestingly enough, who is also scheduled to fight Kiki Latali tonight in New Zealand. I'm assuming that fight got cancelled. I don't know what's going on there. Munro Matet's on the card. Jake Clegg's on the card. I'm glad this fight stayed together. Kai Hodgson and Mike Whitehead. I'm really looking forward to that fight. Peter Salisui's fighting Redall Quinlan. And Dylan Savvy was supposed to be fighting a New Zealand fighter that hadn't fought for 5 years. He's out. Now he's fighting Joshua Hatherley, who's 4-8. And Louis Masters is back against Ikenna Enyi, who's 1-0. So I think this has just been a bit of we got to get something together. Let's throw some stuff on. It's all fallen out. It's been turmoil, and we've just got the card that we've got. I mean, I'm just giving it a total pass because I reckon the PBS has been the story of Australian boxing in 2024, and it's been a massive success. Looks like they kind of limped to the line a little bit. There are some good fights on there. I'll definitely be watching and checking it out. But in terms of finishing, if we're being honest, finishing with the momentum that they started with and built throughout the year, it's definitely a drop off. But I reckon they've had some pretty good success. So I'll give them a pass. What do you make of the card, Coxie? Am I being a bit harsh?
No, I don't think so. It's on a Saturday night here, rather than the midweek shows that we often get from PBS. Yeah, look, if I'm home, I'll probably flick it on, but I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it. I can always go back and catch up on it later on 7 Plus. But yeah, there's not a lot that sort of jumps out at me as much must see TV. But hey. Ace Boxing and PBS have enough runs on the board for me to get an A grade for their debut season.
Yeah, 100%. Congrats to the PBS guys. But the next day, another one of your faves. You drive a few trains, and this is another one of them, mate. Sonny Edwards is fighting Gal Yafai. I'm pumped for this fight, mate. Sonny's one of your guys. How do you see it going?
I've been through this fight so many times in my head, and I come up with a different result every time, apart from a knockout by Sonny Edwards. But
round one, let me guess.
Yes,
round one,
yeah.
Maybe? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, look, I think it's a fascinating matchup of styles and a fascinating matchup of two guys at very different points in their careers. Big fan of Gal Yafai as well as Sonny Edwards, truth be told. But I do really like Sonny's boxing brain. I just think that unless he's sort of aged since we last saw him, I think he just might be a little bit too clever on his feet for Gal Yafai and get over the top of him on points. But I think Yafai will definitely be there to fight and will definitely be trying to test him out at every stage. And I think it could be very competitive in spots.
So two things I was surprised by in this week's lead-up that came out that I didn't know. I thought they were the same age. Yafai's 31. He's 3 years older than Sonny. I didn't know that. So that surprised me a little bit. I knew Yafai was an older amateur when he won the gold medal, but I didn't realize he was. Not to say the 31's old, he's probably still fresh, but I just thought it's kind of weird that the guy who's only had 8 fights is older than the former world champion.
Yep.
Probably 3 things. I didn't know they'd done so many rounds together in sparring over the years. So that was probably the set. But the third surprise, God, have you seen the scar on Sonny's head from that cut in the Curiel fight? Jesus,
it's nasty, isn't
mate. That's a horrible, horrible scar. Mate, you'd reckon you'd have your heart in your mouth the first 3 rounds. That thing doesn't open up again. Like that's brutal. That was like a bloody hook on his forehead,
It's not a small target either. We often talk about targeting cuts, and you wonder how they can be so pinpoint to target them, but that's a big bloody target on his forehead right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you would have to think, when Tim was fighting Murtazaliev and they had that little head clash and he straight away checked for blood. I don't know. I don't know if that played as big a part as some people have sort of made out in the overall, result of the fight. But yeah, you'd have to think it's got to be in the back of Sonny's mind at some point. So those first couple, maybe the first 3 rounds have even more intrigue for me than they would otherwise, just with the presence of that nasty scar. And it wasn't really that long ago that he got the scar. Has it had enough time to heal? I don't know. I'm no doctor, but I sort of tend to agree with you. I think the experience, especially in the pros, will pay dividends for Sonny. But the class of Yafai is undeniable, and they know each other so well. It's, when you get guys that you just never know what's going to happen in the ring when they spar each other so many rounds. Sometimes that can make for a dull fight. I don't think this one will be, though. I reckon we're in for a good one. So I'll actually be getting up early to watch it live.
Wow.
Yeah. You didn't think I'd say that, did you?
I did not see that one coming. Not on my bingo card, no.
But mate, it's a couple of good fights on the card. So I just got it up on BoxRec. Where were we? Sorry. Interestingly enough, Callum Smith's coming back. I don't know against who. He's still TBA on BoxRec, but he was at the press conference. So he's on. People are talking about the Lewis Ritson Conor Walker fight as being a barn burner. I'm obviously pretty familiar with Ritson. I'm not too familiar with Conor Walker, but if what people are saying is anything to go by, that should be a barn burner. That Cameron Vuong is fighting Gavin Gwynn, which has been earmarked as another potential barn burner, and Kieran Conway and Ryan Kelly for the Commonwealth middleweight title. So there's a couple of not necessarily standout names internationally, probably big names in the UK. But from what I'm reading and the little bit I've seen of a couple of those guys, it looks like it's going to be a bit of a banger, mate. So, again, probably similar to what we were talking about with those Golden Boy and Top Rank shows, maybe a tier down from like genuine world title level. They can always be bangers. And I mean, yeah, free on DAZN Sunday morning if you're awake. Check it out. If not, see if it's a banger and watch it later. But I'm pretty confident this is going to be a good card. I'm excited.
Yeah, look, it should be fun. And like you, a lot of these sort of British cards, I'm not overly familiar with the fighters, or I might know, like I know Gavin Gwynn, don't know his opponent. But again, when you don't have that high level of expectation, you're just hoping to be entertained, you can see some cracking fights. So, yeah look, I'll probably won't get up early enough to see the whole card, but I'll be more than ready when the main event comes on, and I'll circle back and watch any other fights that turn out to be fun, competitive, action-packed contests later in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, mate. No, this is a little bit, pulling the curtain back, but I thought it was interesting because, I said there's a lot of stuff happening in the run-up to New Year's Eve, and there's tons. But normally, like I prep for a month, I go through BoxRec. It's normally about 13 to 15 pages you got to go through to get the month, right? Well, the first 5.5 pages on BoxRec this time were all this weekend. Like, there is fights all over the world, every quarter of the planet this weekend at all different levels. It's unbelievable. So you can't be bored this weekend because there's fights on somewhere. There's tons of them too. So we're in for a volume-filled weekend. But, mate, one question I did have for you. So December 7th for next week, there's supposed to be a show at the Melbourne Pavilion with Mitchell Leake and Ben Horn. Is that still on? Do you know what the status is of that local show?
I haven't heard it's not still on, but
Okay.
But that doesn't mean too much. I'm not sure if it's still on or not.
Okay, because it wasn't on BoxRec, or I couldn't find it. I don't know what's going on there. So that might be on, it might not. Who knows? But anyway, the next day, Sunday, the 8th of December, IBF 140-pound champion, Australia's own Liam Paro, back in Puerto Rico against the visiting American Richardson Hitchens. We spoke about it briefly, this matchup, on the last pod, Tone, but now we're obviously only a week away, so we can get into it a little bit more deeper. Have your thoughts changed since giving us your initial thoughts, 4 weeks ago or so?
Not really. Not really. I mean, the one piece I did learn about Richardson Hitchens recently is that his nickname is the Clinch Man, according to Wikipedia. Which,
you did send me that. Yeah.
Which tickled me pink. I don't know if someone's got in there and updated the page for shits and giggles, but look, I think Hitchens will be he'll try and stink the joint out, and Paro will have to kind of work hard to make the fight, but I think Paro is just a class above, quite clearly in my eyes. I don't think he'll. The only trouble he'll have is with Hitchens' negative tactics in the fight.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to put it. My mind hasn't really changed either since my thoughts on the last pod. But I did go back and just watch a little bit more of Liam. Obviously, seen pretty much all of his career except for the early fights off TV and streaming. So we're all of us, in Australia, we're pretty familiar with him. We know him pretty damn well, and I didn't really pick up on it as much earlier watching the fights live the last couple of times, probably from the Yomar Alamo fight. And then again, the Brock Jarvis fight was hard to judge it. So probably really in the Montana Love and Subriel Matias, even though with different opponents and doing it in a different way. But it kind of started with Yomar Alamo, where it looked like, well, to me, looking at Liam, his greatest ability was his control of range. Coming through the whole way. He's just that beautiful ability to be able to get the fight at the distance where he can land his shots and the other guy can't. And Liam could manipulate that and sort of elongate his shots or shorten them to get to a range that was uncomfortable for the opponent. Like, that's high level stuff. How the hell do you do that? I wouldn't know how to teach someone that, but Liam could do it. So I feel like, a lot of his career was based around that attribute, and why wouldn't it be? And I couldn't think of a better coach to help make that ability flourish. And then Alfie DiCarlo, we've sung his praises for years on this pod, and rightfully so, and most likely will continue to. with the more success that they have as a team. But it looks with that, starting with the Yomar Elamo fight, they tried to start getting Liam to be a bit more aggressive. And Liam completely uncharacteristically overcommitted in that first round and got dropped. Seems like the next fight, it's really hard to judge with Brock Jarvis. We all kind of knew that was going to happen. The Montana Love fight was a much more front foot version of Liam than we'd seen before, and he found that great balance. But then there was always talk of, well, is Montana Love overrated? Rah, rah, rah. And then there was a much better blend of it that was certainly opponent specific in the Matthias fight, where he would be on the back foot for portions. But and you pointed out in a pod we did before that fight, where you can't just be on your heels all the time with Matthias. You have to push a guy like that back. You identified that tactic, and they certainly employed it in the fight with great effect. So over the last couple of years and few fights, there has definitely been a concerted effort to not make Liam so reactionary, but also get him to be able to safely and defensively responsible, be able to create his own offense moving forward as well. And my thoughts going into this fight were all the onus is going to be on Liam. He's much better off the back foot going in. When I went back and watched more of Liam the last couple of weeks, I'm definitely much closer to thinking what you think in this fight now. I think Liam's learnt those lessons over the last couple of fights. I think he's going to be much more comfortable moving forward, because I'm pretty sure Hitchens is just going to, maintain that centering position, stand there and try and pop that jab and keep it long. So the onus will be on Liam to break the distance and create the offense and create his own moments in the fight. Hitchens isn't going to give them to him. But looking back at his last few fights, I think obviously the Matthias fight was a breakout win for Liam. I think this could be a very similar type of thing. I'm really confident, much more than I was a couple of weeks ago, that we're going to see a great version of Liam here. Sorry, that took way longer than I thought it was going to come out, but there's the thoughts.
No, look, and again, add Paro to the list of fighters I'm on the bandwagon for, so just excited
You're driving
to see him. No, we're both big fans, but yeah, it's just good to see him get another hit out before the end of the year, and hopefully a big homecoming fight for him next year here in Australia, and some big fights on the horizon for him. But yeah, I think you're right. I think he's, and we always talk about it on this show about, knowing who you are and what your identity is as a boxer. And I think Liam's grown into that. And all the little things that he was doing right, he's been able to blend them into kind of pretty much a total package where he can utilize different aspects where he needs to, and he can box, he can bang, he can push guys back, but being able to do it and knowing when to do it are often two different things. I think now he knows when to do it, and he's very good at following a game plan, and Alfie DiCarlo always comes up with great game plans. So I just think that element as well, that trainer and boxer relationship is very important there, and I think we'll see a good performance from him, and I think we'll see him continue to grow for some time to come.
Yeah, and also the influence of our mate Stephen Edwards. He's not just a cut man. In any corner, he's in the technical acumen of Stephen himself, and he's been with Team Paro, I believe, almost from the start. People think, they got the cut man in the corner. That's almost a second coach. Yep. Whereas obviously Stephen knows his limits and his boundaries, and he has a great working relationship with Alfie. But I believe they have the type of relationship that if Stephen sees something, Alfie's all ears, and they talk about it in the So he's incredibly, and we see Stephen just more and more as time goes on in more corners, a part of more teams. So you can obviously be, you can be a sensational cut man and want to be involved. People want you to be in their team for that skill set that you have, for sure. But I think it also helps that he's a great guy, and he's got a great eye and a great ability to game plan and add little bits and pieces himself along the way. So that's got a very unknown team, but certainly a formidable one, I'd imagine.
And another thing that Stephen does behind the scenes, when they're on the road, he makes sure everything's sweet. So he does he makes sure he's got the rules for the local commission. If the promoter tries to put one over on them, he's all up to speed on all of that. So I think just from a comfort level as a boxer or as a team as a whole, someone's out there not just accepting a late change of gloves or some other little thing that they're trying to put over on the visiting fighters. So yeah, I think the value that he adds to the team, as you said, it's from a tactical standpoint, it's from a cutman standpoint, and also just being an experienced team player who's making sure that the fighter is as relaxed and comfortable as they can be, and there's no surprises leading up to the fighter on fight night. So yeah, invaluable member of any team that he's a part of for sure.
Yeah. And another thing I never took into consideration with Hitchens' career, I believe he's never travelled, never fought outside of America, or at least if he did, it was very early in his career. So Liam's been a road warrior the last few years. His biggest win of his career was in this same, I don't know if it's the same arena, but at least the same country, the same city. So yeah, there are a lot of advantages for Liam here. So yeah, I'm excited. I think we're gonna end the year well from an Australian perspective. Fingers crossed. We'll move on, mate. That same day, obviously, we'll be trying to catch a replay of this one because it'll be running at the same time. But there's a banger of a top-ranked card with two rematches. The rematch between an excellent fight earlier this year between Rafael Espinosa and Robesi Ramirez, and another rematch between a fight we thought was going to be a banger that kind of wasn't, but we think the second one will be Emmanuel Navarrete and Oscar Valdez. Which one, if you had to put money on it, would you bet will be the better action fight?
The Robesi Ramirez fight, I think.
Okay.
Yep. That's the way I'd be leaning. How about yourself, Zach?
I reckon Navarrete Valdez is going to be what we thought it was going to be the first time. I don't know if I'm not saying that fight was bad, but I have memories of it being like pretty wide-ish to Navarrete, like 9-3 or something like that. Oscar sort of couldn't really get going, couldn't touch him. But I think we're going to get the war we thought we were going to get the first time in the rematch. I don't know why. I have no technical reason for it. I just think it might happen.
Look, I hope you're right. I was a bit underwhelmed with their first fight, probably because once again the expectations were up here. It wasn't a bad fight. It was just what I was expecting, and what I got there was a little bit of a gap there. Again, I love Navarrete. I love Oscar Valdez. I'm not sure how much Valdez has left at this stage of his career, but Navarrete's got a few miles on the clock too, so it might be one of those ones where, the matchup's happening at the right time for us fight fans.
Yeah, definitely. But that's one hell of a weekend. Obviously, we'll have our attention all on Liam Paro, but we'll certainly try and catch up on that one. Looks like a banger. But a couple of days later, Wednesday, the 11th of December, Tasman Fighters are putting on their last show of the year with Connor Wallace fighting Ismaile Wellham, who's 7-0-1. Justice Hooney's fighting Leandro Daniel Rabatti, who's 11-6. A really good fight here. Austin Akuzo is fighting Lucas Miller. Another really good fight. Tyler Blizzard's fighting Cheng Yang. And then I've got the rest of the card over here. It's pretty good, mate. Vegas Larfield's back against a guy that's 1-9, but I mean, Vegas is staying busy in the last section. He had a fight a couple of weeks ago against another kind of opponent that was a little bit lower down the food chain, but always good to see people active, as you've always said, Coxie. Max McIntyre is back against Flynn Makem. Danny Keating's in against Bo Wood. Xavier Fletcher's back against Ralph Etienne. There can be, some question marks about, especially Connor's opponent. It looks like they're just getting him out for a run at the end of the year before big things next year. Fair enough. Connor's had a great year. Justice Hooney, I don't mind the little step back, especially after the hiccup with Lorena and, probably lucky to get the win there. The rest of the card, it's with lower level guys, but all in pretty good matchups. I think this is going to be a sneaky, awesome card.
Absolutely the same. Like you, I like the Akuzo Lucas Miller fight. I saw that pop up and I went, that's got some good intrigue, that one. Tyler Blizzard, I reckon he's going to have his hands full.
Man, Cheng Yang is no joke, man. No joke. Yeah,
But that I guess shows the confidence that they've got in Tyler Blizzard. So, if they've got that confidence, who might argue with that? But that could go pear-shaped, but looks like an action. Exactly, looks like an action-packed fight on paper. So I'm down for that. And there was another one on that list there that escapes me that I was looking forward to as well. But yeah, I agree. Look, it's one of those ones where it probably doesn't have that that big name match up at the top that you'd hope for. But when you start going back through the card, you go, there's some fun fights here.
Now, I saw some, boxing Twitter chatter between not necessarily like the manager and promoter of Justice Udi, so who would actually know, but there seemed to be talk, or at least assumptions, that if Justice gets through this fight healthy, he might even back up on Jai's undercard in January 8th. Have you heard anything along those lines, or would that timeline be a bit too quick for you?
I do recall saying something about it, but it escapes me just now where I saw it, or if they had an opponent in mind. I'm not sure. I probably can't comment on that without having wherever I read that in front of me to verify. But look, I don't see why he couldn't, as long as he comes through unscathed and doesn't have a grueling fight there. And if that's what he wants, possibly. But pretty short turnaround. But again, if you've put in a good camp for this fight and you're in and out in 3 rounds or something, why not put that camp to good use and go back through again?
Well, mate, this is a cracking week for Aussie boxing because it just continues. A couple of days later, 2 days in fact, Friday the 13th of December, hopefully that's not a bad omen, which funnily enough is the same day as the 9th annual Fitzlek Golf Day. So I'm going to be struggling to watch this one live, but I'm going to do my best.
Still waiting for an invitation to that one.
You're an out-of-towner, mate. We only have locals attend. But so Friday the 13th of December, what could go wrong? This card, similar to the PBS show that's happening tomorrow night, has undergone a few changes. But as it stands, Stefan Ivic has pulled out, I believe. I don't know for what reason. So Tozi Voziutsu is fighting Kedi Nico, who's 2-3. Jazzy Parr's fighting Shannon O'Connell, which just has question marks all over it, which sometimes fights with question marks all over it end up being fantastic. Callum Peters is making his pro debut against George Webb Rose, who's 1-0 with 1 knockout at light heavyweight. Brock Jarvis is back at middleweight against Adrian Rodriguez and recently reunited with Jeff Fennick, apparently, in terms of training. And we got Kay Scott and Desley Robertson for the IBF female middleweight title. There's a hell of a lot to get into on that card alone, Coxie. So I'll just let you choose what's piqued your interest the most, and we'll go from there.
Well, when I heard this week that Brock Jarvis was back, the very first question was, what weight?
Yeah.
He's a kid who, did he start at super flyweight originally?
He might have, yeah.
Huge frame on the kid, very tall, about 5'9" from memory, and is just constantly outgrown weight class after weight class. Again, he got beat up by Liam Paro at 140, and you sort of wonder, is all that extra weight up at 160 going a bit too high? Look, I don't think Adrian Rodriguez is at the stage of his career to cause him a great deal of trouble, but yeah. The intrigue to me is just how he looks at the weight and if that's where he should be campaigning going forward. Callum Peters, I'm always interested in the pro debut of good amateurs that we've got, so there's some interest there. Same as you, the Jazzy Parr, Shannon O'Connell fight, not sure what to make of that, but be interested to find out. Ivic pulled out with an injury. I did see him post on Facebook about it. I can't recall what the injury was, but I think he needs 3 months to recover from it. So it's obviously something that needs a bit of medical attention. One of those cards that you're not going to go out of your way to watch, but there's some intrigue in some of those fights, I suppose.
I might be watching through one eye at the pub by the time we get there after golf, but I'll be doing my best. If not, I'll catch up on it the day after. But mate, the biggest intrigue for me is the pro debut of Callum Peters. I'm not going to profess or try and convince anyone that I'm some expert on the amateurs and keep up to date with it. I don't. The first time I saw Callum Peters was at the Commonwealth Games when he went on that run. I thought he was robbed against Sam Hickey from Scotland in the gold medal match as well. And I thought he was robbed in the first round of the Olympics against Oralbay. I thought he won that fight too, and Oralbay went on to win the silver medal. So, there's been a lot of talk about Callum and the development that still needs to happen for him. And I'm not here to disagree with that. More astute minds than me have pointed out his deficiencies. But I don't know, man. I feel like, defensive responsibility can be taught and improved on. Shot selection can be taught and improved on and developed, and accuracy can be taught and developed with more experience and stuff like that. So I'm not so worried about those kinds of things at the moment for a young guy. But Callum Peters has what you can't teach. He's fearless, and he has the ability to be in, even in the comm games, I think he was 18 or 19, to walk across the ring and just go hell for leather and punch these guys in the head. You can't teach that. You can have the most skilled fighter in the world and the coach tell him to be aggressive and he won't. You don't have to, Callum has that inherently. Like you're 21 at the Olympics against a gold medal favorite in the first round, and you go out there and just knuckle this dude up with absolutely no hesitation. You know what I mean? You cannot teach that. So I feel like as long as he's with a team, I think he trains with his dad. Maybe I'm not having a shot at his dad or anything. Maybe all this development that needs to happen is certainly a part of the journey down the road and stuff like that. I'm just excited to find out. I'm optimistic. I don't know how high his ceiling is, but I'm certainly ready to watch and find out. I love this kid.
Yeah, and he's got a style that should suit the pros. I think it's great for him to be on TV and start getting a bit of name recognition with fight fans who only watch the pro game. Look, he's got all the time in the world to continue to develop his skill set, but he's an exciting fighter to watch, and I'm very excited to be someone sitting on the couch and watching that journey into the pros and see how far he can go and how he develops over time. So, looking forward to that one a lot.
100%. And mate, I just wanted to quickly just shout this one out. Sunday, the 15th of December from Monte Carlo, presumably on DAZN, is we talk about you driving the trains, driving the bandwagons, mate. One of your other favourites, Murujot Akhmadaliev. I think we're up to about 4 or 5 of your boys now. He's back. He's back after a layoff against Ricardo Espinosa Franco. You going to be tuning in, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I like me a little bit of
murder,
John. Look, I'd love to see MJ get another win and sort of get some more big fights coming up next year. I think he's being from an Eastern European country, I don't think he really gets the credit he deserves. And, hopefully he gets a bit of publicity out of this win and can push for more big fights in the new year.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, at least in terms of Inoue, there's two real standout names he hasn't fought, and he's about to fight one on Christmas Eve, and the other one would probably be Akhmadaliev. So we'll see what happens. But just wanted to mention that one. Now, I've got another question for you, mate. So Sunday, the 15th of December, Australian time, presuming that afternoon, evening, I believe Andrew Maloney was scheduled to be back, but I couldn't find the show on BoxRec as of yesterday at all. Is that still on a Lim Jika promoted show? Is that still the plan for Andrew?
That's an excellent question, because when I was going through BoxRec myself, I noticed that it wasn't listed there. So that's a show I don't know the status of off the top of my head.
Okay. So we may have an Andrew Maloney fight, or we may not.
That's about it. By the way, do you know that Joel Camilleri's fighting over in Dubai shortly?
I didn't. No. Is that in December as well?
He's already over there, so I'm just... if you want to look that one up, I'm not sure what day the fight is, if it's this weekend or next weekend. Or
not listed on BoxRec. Not listed.
Okay, I definitely know he's over there.
Okay. Is it an exhibition or is it an actual pro fight? Or
no, it's an actual pro fight.
Okay. No, Joel, it's just got his last fight with Wes Kappa. Nothing upcoming.
Let me have a look here.
Okay. Oh, I'll take your word for it, mate. That just completely went over my head.
And that's the thing. Sometimes things aren't listed, and I think sometimes that's because some commissions and stuff aren't as well regarded by BoxRec.
Okay.
Yeah, he arrived in Dubai yesterday. I'm just trying to See if I can find out the name of his opponent.
Yeah, I'll try and box rec the opponent.
Um,
Look at that live pod research on pod.
this is how it's done.
Oh well, that's what happens when you miss things. So I apologise. This is my fault.
I think it's a Russian mob that are promoting this fight in Dubai.
Have you got the opponent, mate?
I'm trying to. I'm just scrolling through.
Hang on, guys. That's
So Joel's obviously just called into the pod live.
Yes.
How you going, Joel? The only fighter that's ever been on, mind you, as well. So big soft spot for Joel Camilleri on the TUSC. Don't worry about that.
Here we go. December 6th. Welljohn Mindoro, 13-0-1 with 13 knockouts.
You're going to have to spell that for me, mate. Come on.
Weljon.
Yep.
Surname Mind.
Yep.
Oro.
Mindoro. Okay, let's have a look here. Oh, okay. Filipino?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just once again, it's a natural to have an Australian fighter Filipino in Dubai, isn't it?
13-0, 13 knockouts. The dude looks bricked up in his box rec photo. My God. Okay. A lot of losing records, obviously. I had the draw with Takeshi Inoue in May of last year. Okay. Then he fought a guy who was 3-14-2. Then he fought... his last two fights have been in America against Tyler Goodjohn, who was 13-5. Stopped him in the second round. And he had another fight in Florida. Just in November against Lucas D. Abreu, who was 14-5 and stopped him in the third round. Damn. Okay. Holy hell, we're just going off the box rec. This guy can punch, man.
Looks to be that way, yeah.
Did Joel have in any of his posts a way to watch it? Is there any stream details or anything like that? December 6th, that's coming up next week.
Yeah, look, I don't recall seeing any streaming details, but
okay.
I know his mum, Marty Camilleri, from Marty's KO Photography, the great lady. She's over there, and I'm sure between Joel and between Marty, they'll advise of any link that's available. So I'll definitely be sharing that as I see it, both directly with you and on my socials as well.
Excellent. No, thanks, mate. I completely didn't. I had no idea about that. Holy hell! Just going by this guy's record and just like looking at him, mate. His fit. I don't know if his fists in the box rec photo look about the size of my head. This guy is a unit.
And again, I haven't seen him fight. I only know his record off box rec. That's so I'm flying a bit blind on that one as well in terms of what sort of a test it'll be for Joel. But yeah, December 6th, Dubai.
No worries, mate. We'll stay locked to your socials, which will be in the description of this episode. So if anyone's wants to follow along with Coxie, which it should be anyway, for a multitude of reasons, if not the least, or the most recent reason, to get some details to watch Joel's fight on the 6th of December. So, thanks for that, mate. Also, just wanted to move on. We're almost nearing the end of the year, mate. Saturday, the 21st of December. This one popped up I had no idea about. I caught this one. Rocky Ogden's fighting in Japan. And he's fighting a guy called Macha Nakagawa, who's 16-2-2, who I can't say that I've heard of. Going by the record, pretty decent guy. Japanese fighters at that weight, regardless of their records, are all weapons. So it looks to be a massive opportunity for Rocky before Christmas.
Yeah, okay. This is the first I've heard of this one too. I must have missed this one. So what card is that on? Is there a big main event on there, or?
I only just saw it literally just scrolling the pages, so I didn't see any articles about it or anything. But bear with me, I'm just going through BoxRec now. Macha Nakagawa event. So according to BoxRec, the main event is Willie Baldo Garcia Perez versus Renny Calixto Bibiano for the IBF World Superfly title. Okay. Renny Calixto Bibiano. Have I heard of that guy? I don't think I have. Okay. And then it looks like Rocky and Nakagawa are the co-main.
Okay. Well, we normally have pretty good luck.
IBF World Superfly. Sorry, because Puma Martinez had to vacate that title to do the rematch with Ioka, didn't he?
Correct, yep.
Okay. All right. That's thrown me. Calixto Bibiano, 23-0. How have I never heard of this guy? Or have I heard of him? I don't think I have. Okay. Anyway, that's something for me to do off pod. That's boring to listen and watch. So good luck to Rocky. That's a massive opportunity over there. Hopefully we can get a stream for that.
Look, we're normally pretty lucky with the Japanese shows these days, so I'm sure there'll be an avenue to watch it over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone's always got a phone at ringside. But Sunday, the 22nd of December, mate, the big one, the big rematch, Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury for the undisputed heavyweight title. Bloody pretty good co-main here. Sergey Boachuk and Israel Madrimov, which I'm pumped about. That should be a banger. And Dempsey McKean with a massive opportunity with Moses Atoma. How pumped are you for the heavyweight rematch, mate? The first fight was great. Can they do it again?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect from the first fight, and neither of us are particularly huge fans of the heavyweights. So I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed that first fight. I think Usyk can do it again, but I just get the sense that Tyson Fury's kind of reaching the end of his career and probably just getting up in training and doing the little 1%ers to put himself in the best position. Maybe he's just not doing that as much these days. That said, he boxed very well in the first fight. Can he box that well and better again? I'm not so sure, but interested to find out. I think it's a cracking fight and a big banging card. I love that whole card. It's going to be a very long day. That's my only complaint about these cards from Saudi. They seem brutal, to go on for 10, 12 hours, it seems sometimes. It's hard when they start at 3 a.m, and by the time you get to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's a bit of a drag. But
absolutely,
but the fights are great, and I'm up for that main event. How about yourself?
Yeah, for sure, mate. I mean, we talk about the greatness of Alexander Usyk, and just one of the, dozens of examples we can point out is during that fight. You mentioned Fury was boxing, excellently for, those sort of 4 or 5 rounds after the first or second, and landing those beautiful uppercuts at will, seemingly on Usyk, and he had to change something, and he did, and he found another gear, and the guy's just he's got to be up there in terms of probably the greatest cruiserweight of all time. I don't know about all-time heavyweight rankings and stuff like that, but I'm not a historian or a list maker, but God, he talk about a joy to watch, up there with Bam and Naoya Inoue, and Usyk's got to be on that list, and he's just so bloody funny. He's so likable. The guy can't do a thing, and he's so respectful. That's the main thing too. He's funny without being a smartass, and he always gives people respect. He's the total package as far as I'm concerned, and Fury can be funny sometimes. He can be annoying sometimes. He can be great sometimes. He can be flat sometimes. You just never know what you're going to get with this guy. We know we're going to get consistent greatness out of Usyk. So, to your point, who knows where Tyson's at? We really don't know. Boachuk Madrimov, great fight. Can't wait to see how that plays out. And Dempsey McKean and Moses Atoma. Now, I wanted to talk to you about Moses Atoma. You're probably a little bit more familiar with him than I am. I only just watched his last fight with Mariusz Wach last night. And Wach seemed to be a, badly faded version of what he was in his prime, so it's hard to judge. And then the rest of Atoma's career is kind of like, you would expect the first 10 fights of a prospect's career to be. But what did impress me, and we just talk about Bam and Usyk and Lomachenko, is that southpaw footwork and the way he finds those southpaw angles, Moses. Really impressive. He clearly hasn't fought at the level that Dempsey has yet. Not that Dempsey's been terribly successful when he has fought at a high level either. But geez, this for a fight where I really didn't know what to expect, just watching Atoma's last, 1.5 round fight, it's got me really intrigued. I don't know what to expect. I don't know where Dempsey's at, but man, again, we talk about question marks. This is a question mark fight. I'm going to be waking up for it. But you've probably got a better idea of where both guys sort of sit currently in their career. Have you got a feeling either way, or an idea of what to expect once the bell rings?
No, I'm a little bit like you. Dempsey had those 12 rounds with Hergovic and started a little bit slow, but by the halfway point, really put together some good rounds in there. So when you talk about sort of experience and seasoning, even though that was a loss, he's been in there with a guy of that caliber, whereas Atuma hasn't. And Atuma ticks all the boxes, the eye test, he could be anything, rah, rah, rah. But we don't know what he is yet. It's still too early to judge that. And to me, this is a good step up in class for him. He's fighting a guy who isn't the biggest puncher. I don't think Atuma's fought a southpaw before in the pros. So this is two southpaws against each other. It'll be intriguing to see how it plays out. I know, obviously, a lot of international people, they see an Aussie, they see him lose a fight, and they just go, well, that's typical Aussie. They come over, they lose, and they go home. But Dempsey's a pretty clever boxer in his own right, and he's a big unit too, who moves like a much smaller man. Quite a bit of intrigue in this one for me. I think if Atuma gets through this fight, it's probably a good matchup for him at this stage of his career. And if he gets challenged and wins, even better for him. He'll only be better for the experience. Dempsey's a very long shot underdog there, but I don't think that's doing credit to the type of boxer he is. We'll wait and see. And with the semi-main, Boachuk and Madrimov, I'm absolutely down for that fight too. I just think I love the fact that these guys, through the big fights they had this year, kind of burst onto the scene internationally for people who hadn't seen them before, hadn't seen much of them before, and for them to be back in the ring facing each other so soon, I think, it speaks volumes about the money being thrown at fighters these days out of Saudi Arabia as much as anything. But obviously it takes a willingness to step into these fights so quickly too. I think Madrimov's the favourite in that one, but I actually think Boachuk might get over the line. But either way, it should be a cracking matchup of styles.
Yeah, 100%. Got to move on to the big one. Now, Tone, the big one, Christmas Eve, Tuesday, the 24th of December. Naoya Inoue defends the undisputed super bantamweight title against Australia's own Sam Goodman. I'll just run down the undercard quickly. We got Yoshiki Takai back pretty quickly again after his fight with Daigo Higa, fighting Yatapong Tongdi. Jin Sasaki's back for Shoki Sakai. And there's a fight for the WBO Asia Pacific minimum-weight title between Goki Kobayashi and Uni Takada, which I really hope they show on whatever it's going to be. I'm assuming it'll be pay-per-view main event. I hope they show that fight, because I was just thinking, in terms of, we were talking earlier about Australia and Japan trying to work together a little bit. I mean, this could be a great avenue for Alex Winwood, bouncing back after the CP Freshmart loss. But anyway, who knows what could happen. But, I mean, we have to go to the one that takes all our attention. Naoya Inoue, the monster. I believe the best fighter in the world, pound for pound, and has been for a number of years now. I think he can do things that no one else on the planet can. I think he's the most dangerous fighter in the world, and he's the smartest. And our guy, Sam Goodman, who I'm a huge fan of, is going up against him. I have very, very similar feelings as to when Jason got the fight with Inoue, and I'll always back the Aussie. Always barrack for the Aussie for sure, but... we have to acknowledge, we would be lying if we didn't acknowledge how tough of a task this is going to be for Sam. So how do you sort of handicap it going in, Coxie?
Well, you just can't tip against Inoue, can you? That's the reality of the situation. He's, as you said, he's just got everything going for him. Maybe he's just tipped over his peak, but his peak is at such a high level that, I mean, he could box on for 5 years and I'd still back him over 90%, probably 99% of boxers in whatever weight class he's competing in. So it's such a high bar to jump over. I'm just hoping Sam doesn't get hurt. I don't know what else to say. Sam doesn't. He's got the great footwork. He's a beautiful boxer, but he doesn't have the power to keep Inoue off him. Inoue's got that great footwork himself. We've seen him with guys that can box, and he cuts off the ring beautifully and doesn't give them that opportunity to be on the outside and take a breath and reset. He can do everything. He can pressure. He can box. He can bang to the body. yeah, it's going to be a tough night at the office, and realistically, probably a pretty tough watch for Aussie fight fans. But we'll all be cheering Sam on, and hopefully he can spring the upset, because they do happen in boxing.
Yeah, it's just with these type of fights, and we've seen it in a similar respect before. It's, you know, you have to be like, if you're Sam, you have to be perfect for 36 minutes. You can't make one mistake, you know. And the unfortunate thing you mentioned there, Sam's not a puncher. You know, I reckon he's got the best footwork in the country. Unbelievable feet. That's why we call him the Ghost, because he's standing right in front of you, but you just don't know where he is. But if, you know, there's a couple of people in the world that probably know where he is, and Anui is definitely one of them. You know what I mean? But the other thing that worries me about Sam is he does carry his chin high. He always has, you know, and his defense isn't necessarily predicated on head movement. He uses his feet. It's reactionary. Anui's lightning fast. You know, it's oh god, and you know, similar to you know, just being honest about George earlier. You know, if Sam ever hears this, he'll probably, you know, hate us forever. But you know, you got to be honest. You can't lie. It's the toughest thing in the sport to do is beat Inoue. You know, two things have stuck out to me about him or comments about him over the years. Corey Erdman, who's seen mate of the pod, Corey Erdman, hopefully be back on again soon one day. Legendary guy, unbelievable boxing knowledge. He said after one of his performances, maybe a year or two ago, on this podcast, he said, Inoue might be the most offensively gifted fighter he's ever seen. Ever. Out of anything he's ever seen, Inoue is the most offensively gifted. And when a guy like Corey says that comment really carries some weight, you know? And the other one is, after the Neary fight, I was watching it with my old man. We were kind of just sitting on the couch silent for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes or something, both just blown away. And my old man was the first one to talk, and he's been watching boxing since the 70s. And he just looks at me and he goes, he might be the best fighter I've ever seen.
There you go.
You know, and he's watched 100 times more boxing than I ever have. It's just like, you know, I remember, again, years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, when I did a podcast with Barry Michael back in the day, and I asked him about Inoue, and we did it at his kitchen table, face to face. And I never will forget the expression on his face and the look in his eye when I mentioned Inui's name. And it was just this look of like, just amazement. And he just went, oh, the power. Like, he couldn't believe how good this got, you know?
Yep.
Like, I don't know. I'm rambling again, but I'm using all these examples just to try to illustrate like how tough of a task this is for Sam. You know, God, but you know, I want him to win so bad. My heart says Goodman. My heart says the Ghost all day. But you're going up against the best guy on the planet, who's ruthless as hell and devastating and fast and smart and accurate. And yeah, God, good luck, Sam. Please don't get hurt. My heart says Goodman. My heart says Ghost, but we'll see what happens.
No, there's. Geez, we're finishing on quite a downer here, aren't we? It's.
Well, not
we're
quite.
Planning a funeral or something.
I got 2 more for you.
All right,
You, mate. Because we go to our traditional New Year's Eve.
Of course.
Absolutely. And now for just the WBA super flyweight title, as we found out before, the IBF one has been vacated. Fernando Puma Martinez in the rematch with Kazuto Ioka from a good fight earlier in the year. This is kind of, these matchups are similar to the Joshua Franco fights, where we had the first fight during the year and then the rematch on New Year's Eve. I remember you and I actually having a little bit of an argument on the phone after that first fight, because I thought Ioka won. And then he clearly won the second fight. But this time, even as much as an Ioka fan as I am, I thought Martinez clearly won the first fight. Yep. I was surprised that Ioka wanted a rematch, to be honest. Not that he got bashed around or beat up or anything, but you know, it's going to be a hard style, especially at his age, to deal with. How do you see the rematch playing out in terms to the first one?
Look, I see it being fairly similar. I mean, Ioka's been around forever, and he hasn't shown a massive decline, but styles like his don't typically, you know, sort of fall off a cliff dramatically. But I'm sure if we went back and watched fights from 5 years ago, it'd be more apparent that he's just not slipped, but maybe your work rate and your timing and your reflexes are just starting to level off a bit there. I think Yoka has a very tough night at the office in front of him there. I mean, maybe he can make it a bit closer the second time round, but yeah, I see Martinez pretty much doing the same thing again.
Yeah, I agree, and it might be the end for Ryoka here, realistically. But what a way to do it on his traditional holiday, New Year's Eve. So, as always, I know we'll be watching. He's been great for the Sporty Yoka, and definitely a favourite of mine over the years. Not that I'm driving the train or the bandwagon. I'm not going to kick you out of the seat, Coxie, but I've got a firm seat, sort of, just behind you on it. But
Okay.
mate, I've got one more to throw at you, and we'll get you out of here. Wednesday, January 8th. It is next year, but I thought it was definitely worth mentioning. Jai Opetaia is back, defending against mandatory challenger Hussein Sinkara. He'll be defending the IBF Cruiserweight title and also the Ring Magazine Cruiserweight title. Have you brushed up on Sin Cara, or did you know much about him before this fight was announced, Coxie? Or
No, well, I knew nothing about him until the fight was announced. So I went back and watched some video there. He looks pretty tough and rugged, a come forward type of guy. Wings kind of wide, wild shots, and to me, it just looks like the type of style that Jai will eat up for breakfast and get him out of there pretty quickly, I'd suggest.
Yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts exactly as well. I sort of thought, Jack Massey, Jordan Thompson, Alice Sorrow, Sin Cara, all sort of about the same level. We kind of, I guess we're being a bit cocky, but recent history suggests that we probably can afford to be a little bit here. I'd be pretty surprised if Sin Cara can make this a tough night for Jai. And on to bigger and better things after that. But, that does us for the year, Coxie, and a little bit of next year too. But I think Jai will be the first person to defend a world title in 2025.
I reckon you're right too. I think this will be what Jai's. I'd have to look back. I think it's his fifth fight in like 16 months or something like that. So
I'd have to look it up. Yeah, it might
be. So Jai doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. He says he likes staying busy, and he's always shown that. So really, providing he comes through unscathed, I think he goes back out again sooner rather than later. And to be honest with you, it wouldn't even surprise me if he fought 4 times next year, providing he can get opponents. Because So what are we? January, so April, maybe May. I'd expect to see him back out, and I'd imagine he'd be keen to squeeze in 2 more after that if he can.
Mate, Zerto Ramirez in Riyadh. Or Riyadh season in America, because that's a better time zone for us.
Yes, please.
So Jai still gets paid, but we don't have to wake up too early.
Sounds good to me, buddy.
No, excellent, mate. Well, just got one more for you, Coxie. Obviously, it's in a bit of a transition-ish period, I guess, now. Obviously, you've established yourself as writing for The Ring at the Ring magazine the last couple of years, been doing an absolutely excellent job. It just came out that the Ring has been purchased by Turkey. Turkey Al Sheikh from the whole Riyadh season, or that type of thing. I know it's probably too early to really know what the changes will be and what's happening, but at least from your point of view, is everything sort of staying as is? Are there any changes, any updates coming that people need to know about if we're following your content specifically?
Yeah, look, I don't have a lot of insight into what's happening behind the scenes. Obviously, with the magazines coming back full-time, rather than just the special editions that we do. And we do have a special edition coming out for Fury Usyk, which will be out next month. I know the website's having a revamp and apps being developed. There's going to be merchandise. There's going to be more content and more ways for people to see that content. So it's probably been a little bit overdue, if I'm honest. I've often felt that that with advancements in technology, maybe the Ring could be doing a little bit more in that space. And now with Turkey coming in and having a vision to make it a more of a one-stop, both digital and hard copy sort of platform, I think we will see some exciting changes to come.
Okay, excellent, mate. Well, that's good news. Well, and we know you've got a great article coming out in that special edition for Fury Usyk.
Yes, yeah, I did an article on clinching in the sport, so it's which is a bit of fun to write feature articles rather than just sort of hard news and fight reviews and things like that. So I'm hoping to do more of that in the future, and certainly with the magazine back in print and still doing the special editions as well as the regular editions. I think the magazine's growing in page numbers as well. I think that's part of the plan.
Yeah, excellent.
So yeah, it'll be an expanded offering from the Ring across multiple platforms, which for me personally, hopefully delivers more opportunities for me as well. But yeah, I think it's exciting times ahead to see what we can deliver there and get people involved.
And I'm not trying to like be a shill or anything. This is just actual. I've had a subscription to the Ring for, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years now, something like that. It's unbelievably affordable. Yeah, I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. I pay, but yeah, you'd be surprised how affordable it is to get magazines internationally, and I believe that's going to remain as is. They're not going to bump the price up or anything. And you sent me a thing, I think yesterday or earlier today. If you're not a Ring subscriber and you want to sign up, you can win a car off Turkey.
Yeah, the Mercedes. I think it's worth about 150k. So yeah, get involved. I think the dates on that are you have December 19. I think is when that competition opens. So yeah, chuck your hat in the ring and pay your measly subscription and win a car.
Sounds good to me. You never know. We might get lucky. But, well, that's great news, Coxie. Very much looking forward to what you do personally in terms of your coverage of the sport coming up in 2025. And, yeah, congratulations and a massive thank you for all the coverage you've done this year, especially from an Australian perspective. You've done a mountain of work for Australian fighters, ones that are at the top of the totem pole and also ones that aren't quite there yet that also deserve coverage too. You're an equal opportunity man, and I know the fighters and the people involved in the sport appreciate it, and certainly I do, and all the fight fans out here, the consumers of your content, we all appreciate your hard work as well. So thank you very much for this year. Very much looking forward to another big year for you personally next year. And once again, thanks for all the time on the pod, mate. I ask for more time from you than I do from anyone, and that won't change next year going forward.
No, thanks for the kind words, Zach, and thanks for having me on the pod so frequently. It's always fun to catch up and talk boxing with you. It's it's something I enjoy a lot, mate. So hopefully we keep doing a lot more of this going forward.
Bloody oath. Good on your Tone. We'll see you next year, mate.
No worries. Ciao, Zach.
All right, guys, and there we had it. That was my chat with Anthony Cox, the Aussie boxing scribe. As always, if you are not following on board with Anthony, you definitely should be. He's had an amazing career in sport, in boxing journalism in general, and specifically the last couple of years writing for the Ring magazine, which, as we've just freshly heard at the end of the chat there, looks like it is going to be continuing, if not expanding, considering the Ring's new purchase from the Riyadh season crew, which is great news. And we will also stay tuned to Anthony's social media accounts, where he will be able to find the Joel Camilleri fight stream details, which I didn't even know about, which is December 6th Australian time from Abu Dhabi, I believe. So yeah, guys, click along with the links for Anthony. I've got his author page there at the Ring, so you can go back and read some recent articles, some older articles, some new articles we have coming out before New Year's Eve and to finish off the year. And just know that you'll be supporting a good guy. I've asked Anthony for more time than anyone, and he's never, ever, ever said no to me. So I massively appreciate his time, and the least we can do is continue to support his work. It's a thankless job sometimes. So yeah, the best thing we can do is support along and show his content the numbers and get it the viewership that it deserves. Not that it already isn't incredibly high, but we just need to increase that and strive forward for bigger and better numbers for Anthony, because he really is one of the good guys of the sport. So, guys, that will most likely do us on the pod for the year. I am contemplating whether or not I try to get one out before Sam Goodman, or around the Sam Goodman Naoya Inoue fight, either before or after, but it's right around Christmas. It's going to be tough. Historically, it's been pretty tough in the past to lock people down in December, just with obviously everyone's work schedules being so crazy. Obviously holiday time coming up, time with the family. Yeah, it's kind of historically been a little bit hard. I might put some feelers out and see how we go. So I'm not guaranteeing anything. So we most likely will be back in January, but there is a slight possibility that we could be back a little later in December and for a little bit of a bonus episode. We'll see how we go. That'll just be dependent on whether or not whoever I ask, we'll literally have time for it. So we'll keep our fingers crossed to see how we go. But if not, we will definitely be back in January because we hit the ground running big time with Jai Opetaia and that card from the Gold Coast. So, guys, if you want to get in contact with me, you can email the pod at tuscpod@gmail.com. If you want to throw a tweet at me, you can do that at delivery_man2 or at tuscpod on the Insta. But again, that's not a must follow. And also, guys, the YouTube channel, which is the new thing that we're kind of started to do the last episode and now this episode. I figured it out a little bit better now. Obviously, we didn't know we were going to be on YouTube last time, so I've got these. If you're watching on YouTube now, you'll be seeing the title card as you would have for the intro that'll be now for the outro. So, yeah, I don't know. All that stuff might change. I'm open to ideas if anyone's, a guru at video editing and stuff. All this stuff is completely new to me, but for at least the near future, I think this will be the way that we'll continue to go, just so we get the music and the intros and outros, so it's all the same product, either on the audio platforms and also on the video platform as well. That'll be the plan, but I'm sure there'll be some tweaks and stuff like that along the way. But guys, that will do us. If this is it, thank you very much for listening for the year. We hit the ground running unbelievably well, I thought, at least. Massive highlight having Al Bernstein on back in March. That was truly a highlight I'll never forget. We did run into a bit of a roadblock and have that big break there. So, look, I'm not throwing out the grades for my own pod. I'll leave that up to you guys. But we started well. It was a little bit inconsistent, and then we're back at the end of the year. So I'll be doing my best, as always, to offer some significant more consistency next year is the plan, but sometimes it is out of my control. But that sounds like a cop-out, so it's free content. I'll put it out when I can. The goal is to always go every 4 weeks. That's the plan. So hopefully next year we can have a nice, consistent year. But until then, guys, it's the end of the year. Merry Christmas. Have a good, safe holidays. There's tons of fights to watch. So, as always, enjoy the fights, and I'll chat to you later.
Well, let's travel. May add up the change. Living like there's no tomorrow. Then tomorrow came.
Going all out.
I was living like there's no tomorrow. Then tomorrow came. I got the wake-up call, laughing through the window frame.